Oh shit, JP Sandman, you've been a sub for 25 months! Oh my god, I'm so sorry for your loss. Tricksy little hobbitses. Let's bring up Twitch. So this is the pre-stream where you can hear me fiddling about in the background. Fiddle, 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 rustle, 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 mate. No! What? Oh, wow. And then you literally just subscribed as well. What? Did I mention that you were subscribed for 25 months before you were subscribed for 25? I'm so confused. I'm a seer. I can see into the fucking future. Brexit's gonna be shit. Star Citizen will eventually one day be complete. For these kind of predictions and more, we have me clicking. Right. A very quick bio. Board, what is Vulcan? What is Vulcan, Board? I'm not sure I'm saying that like a Skeksis friend. There's two types of Vulcan in Star Citizen. One with a K, and one spelt like you have spelt. But also, there's obviously Vulcans from Star Trek. I will discuss this and more after bio. Alright, let us see if I can click on some stuff. What's this do? That's my desktop. I don't want that. There we are. That's better. Same footage we always fucking use in the background. Boom! I'll update that. I'll update that after I'm done in the stream. That means it might not get done when I say shit like that. Just very aware of that. Means my intention is to do that. However, I might get sidetracked by anime or a pretty coin or a bee. Is my voice alright? You can hear me? Hear me good? Music not too loud? The beautiful Pedro Camacho making this music and pretty much all the music we play for the most part, unless YouTube decides to randomly play something which is copyrighted or something. This is the ArcCorp theme music. You notice there's a lot of different atmospheric and themed music from the areas you move into, and you'll start to see that more and more. It is wondrous, isn't it? I'm wondrous too. Maybe I'm not. I don't know. If you would like to ask a question, oh, that's a good fucking scratch. Oh. Okay, you get me to see me scratch my itchy, flaky scalp. You should use Head and Shoulders. Head and Shoulders, sponsored of Board Gamer. It's not, but maybe it should be. You could get luxurious hair like mine. So, if you'd like to ask a question in brackets will allow me to pull it out from, I say a group, but maybe there'll just be one person asking a question from the other questions or question. So please do that. I want to talk about, well, anything that you guys want to talk about, but also Alpha 3.7.
Love you and your itchy bald head. Thanks for the consistency.
Oh, thank you very much, Cradle Robin. Appreciate it. Well, thank you very much for sort of like just listening to me have a mixture of ramble. It should be Star Citizen ramble on live stream. Really, is more realistic to what it is. I mean, though you can ask me anything, so it's both accurate. Yeah, thank you very much for the resub, Cradle Robin. And JP Sandman, 25 months is a bollock ton of months to be subscribed to me. So I appreciate that very much. Much love. Oh, it says board NDA, and then has me as an avocado, although the green screen doesn't pick it up very well. I've got a t-shirt store. I will be updating the range of my t-shirts properly when Zin is working for me, before she does graphics like that. And I just go, Zin, make t-shirts happen with funny things that I say. Bam! And then people will be like, oh my god, your Board Gamer merch is fucking great. And I'll be like, yeah, I fucking know. And it will be all Star Citizen rated without encroaching on the copyrights of Star Citizen. I mean, that Chris Roberts t-shirt, which might not be Chris Roberts on the picture there, but it just has him, Chris Roberts quote, saying, yeah, we know it's not fucking there, whatever it says. Yeah, we know shit. I can't remember. I can't even remember what my t-shirt says. But we'll have some stuff like that which doesn't encroach on CIG's sort of IPs or represent any of their employees. Well, at least not obviously. But yes, I hope everyone was doing well. Hanath, how do I say your name, Hanath? So just say Hanath. Thank you very much for 27 months. Oh my god. How long have I been streaming? Not like now. I know, a few minutes now. But yeah, other things I want to talk about today are Hover Mode is dead. I've got a video coming out on Inside Star Citizen sort of summary. I call it Star Citizen Insider, my version of that, because what I'm going to be doing is trying to get some follow-up questions on Inside Star Citizen where possible. And then, and also sort of just adding in more, explaining more what was shown and why, and what other stuff we can expect to see, and using a bit more of applied sort of research from the Inside Star Citizen. I want to start adding more value to certain videos. Some videos that are news-based, great. Just compile the news, compact it, make it understandable, elaborate on certain bits of it. But when it's more sort of like if I'm literally looking at something and adding very little, just reporting directly on it at the same sort of length, I would prefer to add value to it in some way. So my series Star Citizen Insider looks at Inside Star Citizen, but also adds upon that, as I said. But that's coming out, and that I wanted the working title for it was Fuck Hover Mode. We've got something better now, or it's dead. I can't even use the word dead in videos because you get demonetized. Can't use the word fuck, obviously. Even saying it too much gets your video demonetized, or at least lesser monetized. But yeah, so I want to talk a bit about the new flight assist mode, which is replacing hover mode, which is sort of on paper what I wanted. However, we will see if it's good or not when it's in our hands, and that's coming 3.7 as well. And they showed off some other stuff. They showed a personalized inventory system for commodities. It's very, very light personal physicalized inventories, but it's starting to move towards that. And we saw some variants of the vanguards and stuff like that as well. So there was some cool stuff, though. Very short episode of Inside Star Citizen, but hopefully they'll get better and better and better. FPS mining, finally tree punching for wood. I don't think we're going to have... I do expect we will be able to gather wood at some point in the game for some reason. But yeah, no punching trees for wood. When do you think the 890 jump will go on sale? I need a second one. What? So I would expect if they are going to sell the 890 jump when 3.6.2 goes live, which I would expect for this weekend. I actually thought, wow, I actually thought that it was going live last night because they said they were taking it down for maintenance and it was going to go live very shortly, but I was mistaken. So expect it for the weekend. Board, what is Vulcan? So there's Vulcan, Vulcan, and Vulcan. Okay, there's the Vulcans from Star Trek. There's Vulcan in Star Citizen as a ship, the Vulcan, which is a drone repair, refuel, and rearm ship of a medium size, which is currently concepted and will be in game in the future. But we don't have an ETA on that. And then there's Vulcan with a K, which is a graphics API, and they're going to be updating Star Citizen to be integrate Vulcan, which is going to make it hardware neutral. So it shouldn't matter whether you've got an AMD or NVIDIA graphics cards. There's no specific sort of optimizations for those cards beyond them both being optimized. And that will allow for much better sort of like scaling of CPU threads and of graphics cards and of hardware, lots of graphics optimizations and that sort of stuff. It's incredibly important to the Star Citizen's engine. So which system you think will have the worst bug? Mission sharing or caves? I think we'll see less and less bugs as they put out more patches now because of their staggered development. However, I suspect we could see big shiny bugs for both mission sharing and caves in 3.7, especially in the PTU and EVA Kali phases. Maybe I'm the only one, but I think 3.7 brings real actual gameplay to Star Citizen. We've sort of said that a lot, and with some of the previous patches, and some of them have genuinely brought a lot of extra gameplay to Star Citizen, but I mean, it's working on very little gameplay and most of it being sandbox. But yes, 3.7 does expand the universe significantly with a lot of extra gameplay. Mission sharing is massive. The commodity system and the looting of harvestables, minables, and stuff by hand is actually pretty big. There's quite a lot to do there. Is this the right place to ask about my pizza delivery? You're more than welcome to ask about it. It is an ANA, technically. What does this do? Does explode? Do you think overall gameplay, destructible surroundings would add to better immersion? Shooting out a window on a station and being sucked out into the void, for instance. Well, I would expect that those windows and stations would be bullet resistant. So they are building that rim system. They are building systems for some destructible terrain and some destructible things. I'm not sure to what extent that will actually propagate out to. There is a physical damage system that they're putting in. Ships are going to be able to be blown apart. I'm not sure to what extent stations will be able to bits will be able to be blown off them and stuff like that. So expect some forms of explosive decompression and that sort of stuff, but not everything. Not people running around with stations just firing a pistol at a window and exploding outwards. I think that's very unlikely at the very least. You don't want to interrupt standard gameplay in certain areas. So like you want Lawville to typically be a hub for people going there, shopping, gathering missions, dropping off missions, and that sort of stuff. You don't want it to be insanity in that area. Yeah, maybe some of the more piratey areas, some of the more sort of like crazy systems, you'd have more of a brawls and occasional pistol shots going off and things like that. But you don't want them to just be anarchy all of the time. You don't want them to be less survivable when you're there. Minecraft Let's Play when? I've done Minecraft before, years and years ago. When I first started my channel, I did some Minecraft. Did a full series of Feed the Beast, and then some other maps. You should actually be able to see that, probably, assuming I haven't... maybe I've unlisted it because it was not focused on Star Citizen and damaged my SEO for Star Citizen. But I think it's still there. Do you think we will get light to mine layers in the future? Well, they actually already sort of addressed this. Potentially, yes, is the too long didn't listen. So we've also got the Nautilus that they're building out at the moment. However, those mines will be able to still be sort of like diffused and swept by people EMPing or other people carrying Nemo drones. So sort of bear that in mind. You won't be able to take someone else's mine and repurpose it and then place it back out with a Nemo drone that's not on a Nautilus. The Nautilus has a facility on board which allows you to sort of like repurpose it as one of your mines. But it did sound like they were talking about other ships being able to potentially have modules that would allow them to lay mines to a smaller extent or something. That's not confirmed. That was something that they sort of looked like they were looking at. This is the most civilized YouTube channel I've been on. Well, thank you very much. That's appreciated. I think that's appreciated. Civil talk is kind of the main thing I think I want when I have people that have differing points of view from mine, which is most people. If you actually take the time to talk to people, they will have different views on things. I appreciate this being... I haven't got a cup of tea here. I've got the empty cup of green tea. I haven't even got my shill cup. I want my Idris flight ready. I heard a rumour that the Idris and the Javelin might be coming out before Squadron 42 is ready. However, that was just a rumour, and that could be like a day before, I suppose. Do you think they will sell the 890 jump again when it goes live? Yes, I think the 890 will go on sale when 3.6.2 goes live in a limited amount of hulls. So, like, maybe a few hundred. Not confirmed, but that's what I expect. What do you think of the hand item storage mechanic they showed inside Star Citizen? So, for people that don't know... we can bring this up on screen, I suppose. So... we've got the personal inventory system. So, basically, for 3.7, rather than having the full physicalized inventory system, they've just got this very basic one, which allows you to basically pick up items from the floor, or whatever, or from harvestables and minables on planets. So you're able to pick fruit off trees, pick dung up off the floor, pick fruit off bushes. There could be commodities and minerals. You'll have to mine minerals by hand and stuff like that, and gems and rare materials and potentially some other lootables. And then you'll be able to open up the personal inventory system by going into your inner thought and click on the little pip that appears on the screen, and then you can pick up items, manage the items, or drop all of your items that you currently are carrying into a box, a cargo box, which can then be detected by a cargo grid. Very basic at this stage. Get here, find a load of random stuff, and you can literally just drop it as a drop individual items. Or you can store all and drop it as a little crate on the floor, which is detected by cargo grids. Now, what I'm interested in knowing is, will this be lootable? Is this counted as stolen cargo if I steal it off someone else's ship? Will they drop all their items when a character gets killed? That sort of stuff. And what sort of things are going to be available? Because we can sell the stuff on kiosks. They showed some super cheap items. So I'm hoping there's some really valuable stuff that you can find potentially. Yeah, looking forward to that. I think that's going to be pretty cool. And then maybe there's going to be interesting areas where you can have a huge crew all going out to gather stuff together on a planet and bring it back to a ship. Maybe. And then, yeah. Maybe start using cargo on the Humble Cyclone. Civilian version. It's very sort of like physical inventory's light. It's not full physicalized inventory. I'm hoping we start to get less and less bags of holding, which is what I wanted. Oh, Jen Desperado, thank you very much for the raid. Very much appreciated. And Fulub, thank you very much for the sub. Oh, I love you. Oh, I love you all. Appreciate it. Also, there are a couple of new YouTube members which pay money each month to be subscribed to my YouTube. And the same as the Patreons, they get access to some exclusive content each month, extra polls and things like that. I'm going to keep on adding more and more content to that because, you know, it makes me money and I want to encourage people to give me money. Muggen Coffee and Corey Green, thank you very much for becoming members there. Very much appreciated. Love your fucking faces. What else have we got? So we might start watching Star Citizen live when it goes live in an hour. Depends on how fucking exhausted I feel. I'm very sweary today, so apologies for that. Also, I find that watch parties aren't particularly great because I want to keep on talking and answering questions. And I talk over the devs, but maybe we will, maybe we won't. We'll see. We'll see what people want at the time. Why have I brought up a document on proximity assist that I was making? Oh, because I want to talk about it probably in a minute. Do you think Emperators will get the digital goodies pack as Hangar Flare for, again, this year? Or will it be $15 pushed out? I think that, Houdini, that Emperators will probably get that stuff, maybe an extra item or something as digital goodies, as their sub flare for that month. That would be my expectation. Hard or soft Brexit? Is it over yet? It's not over yet. We've got an interesting situation at the moment where the Tory party seems to want to be pushing for any form of Brexit as soon as possible, and Labour are just, all they are doing is disrupting anything that the Tories want to do. That's literally the thing we have at the moment. There's obviously a lot of other connotations to it, but it's just an interesting situation. I don't think there is anything that the current government could say to make the opposing parties agree with them on anything. They've even said they wanted a general election now, which is being blocked as well because the opposition don't want a general election at the moment because it would be probably damaging for them. So that it's a funny old situation to be. It's the worst possible situation as well. We are literally in Brexit limbo, which just damages the economy. The worst parts of Brexit for me are happening because it just damages the economy. But that's my views on it at the moment. I don't care if we leave or stay at the moment. I just want something to happen and be definite so the country can recover from it. Obviously, there's probably better options than not, but it's just deadlocked and ridiculous. So it's interesting. Female avatar, in short, what's your opinion about its current implementation in the future? The same as the male ones, really. They're going to keep on evolving them. They'll look more and more realistic. Once we have some better graphics engine support for like Vulcan and better rendering stuff that they're bringing in, we'll see better and better sort of like detailing and generally better rendering sort of stuff with it. They're going to keep on adding more to the faces. They're going to keep on adding more to that customization system. So looking forward to it. But it's for both female and male models, they need to keep on updating them and get them in the place they're ready for the customization system properly. I mean, at the moment, it's sort of like a proof of concept, and that's the way I describe it. Do you think the Nautilus will be faster than the Polaris? No, I think the Polaris will be faster. Do you think the Nautilus will be a better multi-role ship than the Polaris? I think the Nautilus is a focused mine-laying, mine-sweeping, and support ship. So the Polaris probably is going to be better at other roles, especially, you know, being torpedo. It's more combat, sort of like aggressive combat related, more of a brawler, more of a torpedo corvette. The Nautilus is more of a long-range sniper when it's fighting, although it's very tanky. I don't think it's going to survive long against a Polaris. They are more likely to disengage from each other eventually, though. The Nautilus was most likely, in my opinion, to disengage from the Polaris, unless the Polaris is going into a minefield as well. That's my opinion on that. We need a Carrick update. I've done a Carrick update with the most recent information, looking at the captain's quarters and all that sort of stuff, relatively recently. Carrick is... I can't remember how big it is now. 125 minutes? Carrick 125 minutes now? 155 minutes? Oh, I can't fucking remember. I have to look at my notes. My brain has gone blank. Carrick. More Carrick. How big is the Carrick currently? 125 meters. Yeah, six person crew. It's basically a compact top tier exploration ship, sort of but got loads of capital ship facilities, but only got large components. I absolutely love it. I think it's going to be one of the most popular ships in the game for small to medium groups and for general mission running, because it's going to be, exploration is going to cover a lot of things, but the ability to be out in the verse for a long period of time, and it to do a bit of everything, can have a rover and a snub, and it's going to have powerful scanners. Scanners are going to be very useful in space, probably one of the major mechanics of doing missions and of sort of like detecting points of interest, which is how I see most of the exploration mechanics going down. Sort of like you scan down and detect mission areas and points of interest and stuff, which then leads to more and more events, points of interest, missions, all that sort of jazz. Hover mode is dead. Woo! But hopefully the new assist mode is better. So from what we saw of the assist mode, let's bring this up on screen. So the idea is that with the new proximity assist, the closer you are to the ground now, the slower you go. But you don't have the sort of like pitching forward will push you forward, the erratic movement, the slightly more unstable movement. There's an assist to that. You can turn it off, and you will go back into more traditional flight model, I believe. Maybe go back into the hover mode. I actually don't know for sure for that. But the idea is that the closer you are to the ground, the more precise, the more slow you move. You're still heavy, you still have weight, you still have mass, your thrusters are still being used, but you can get out of that reasonably fast and actually blast off away from that to a more traditional flight model. But once you slow down, you sort of like your thrusters point downwards and you are moving much more slowly. So that's what I wanted, just because I don't want... So I was talking to some people that were asking me to justify why I didn't want to fly like a helicopter. And I sort of hadn't really thought about it more than I didn't like the system as it was. So what I want is I want the ability to land on a planet and the ability to fly close to the ground to be relatively easy. I do want high level like combat mechanics and sort of like a really high skill ceiling for maneuvering, for combat and stuff, but not for the most basic of mechanics. I want there to be a solid skill floor there that goes, bam, yeah, you can land. Yeah, you can move around. You can traverse the terrain. I think that's so important for the game. But obviously you have a huge skill ceiling there for other things. And I do want ships to not be super dominant in atmosphere. I think that's important as well. You don't want ships to be like, bam, wham, you're an we're on a planet now, you're in an outpost. Ships always win, lol, 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 lol. So if they're attacking or whatever, I want them to have to slow down. I want them to have to strafe and move around. I want them to, when they're slow, be vulnerable effectively. And I want ships to feel heavy in atmosphere. And I want them to, if they take damage to thrusters in atmosphere, they can go down. And they are looking at also making the way they tweak the ship's thrusters in atmosphere, making them effectively weaker when they're in atmosphere because they're under more sort of pressure. So there's a lot of stuff that's going in there which I, on paper, think is better. Don't know until it's in my hands, though. But yes, indeed. When I said I didn't want to fly like a helicopter, that's what I sort of meant. Yeah, I expect the female animations and stuff to get updated and more added to them. They sort of like got these, I mean, they are all based on mocap, and that's what they're going to continue to do. Just expect a bit more fluidity to that, I suppose. Nin Jedi. Fuck, that's what your name is now. I don't care if it's wrong. Thank you very much for the sub. Very much appreciated. Love your face, Star. Do you think we got a proper Nautilus Q&A, or is it more of a mind gameplay Q&A? It was more of a mind gameplay Q&A. However, they did answer most of the Nautilus questions in the main post, concept ship, in an Inside Star Citizen, and in the jump point. So at the moment, until the ship's more fleshed out, more ready, I suspect I expect that's what we need, really. It was more on the mines. I mean, it's a mine laying and mine sweeping ship. That's what I wanted to know more about mines. And they gave me a load of mine info. So what did they ultimately... So did they ultimately just waste the development time on hover mode? So I wouldn't say so. I mean, you can. I didn't like hover mode. I suspect they're taking a reasonable amount of what hover mode was and putting it into that flight assist system. But I mean, it's sometimes the stuff's iterative, sometimes it's sort of like evolutions, and sometimes it's this doesn't work. We're gonna have to try this instead. And I think it's a mixture of all of that with this. So, have you ever played Battlefield 4? Been inside the largest, tallest building when it came crashing down? Yeah, and you had to jump off the top of it. Yeah, it was amazing. It's amazingly good fun at Battlefield 4. It's Battlefield 3 I'm thinking of. I think it was Battlefield 4. Used to play a lot of. Realistically, when do you think we'll see base building? So base building is a little bit further out. I don't know. I don't have any sort of inklings for that. I think we will see land claim gameplay before we see base building. I think we will see the ability to survey land. I think we'll see the ability for players to use land claims. They wanted to put that in at the end of 2018, in fact, and have laws and stuff attached to that. So we got the law system more recently, but we haven't had the land claim gameplay yet. So I would expect to see land claim gameplay next year, and then base building probably the year after. Do you think we'll see the Apollo in 2020? Yeah, I think it's a strong possibility we could see the Apollo. Seeing we have the Connies and the Auroras, or visual guides, and by that point the Cutlass Red for medical gameplay more fleshed out. I'm not sure what form of medical gameplay we'll have fleshed out by then. We are going to have the ability to, I think, drag people, but also jab them with medipens, and the player status system more already fleshing out exactly how players will react to certain stimulus and getting injured and all that sort of stuff. And then I'm not sure when we'll have full on medical gameplay and proper damage systems for players. Do you think we'll get light mine layers board? Yes, I do. Or at least modules for certain ships to allow them to do some form of mine laying, mine sweeping. Maybe it won't be. Maybe it won't be mine layers. Admittedly, maybe it'll be more mine sweepers. That's what I'm actually thinking of. Yeah, I think I'm thinking about it. It's going to be more mine sweeping than mine laying, probably. It doesn't make sense to have loads and loads of different types of mine layer vehicles. Maybe different types of deployables, though, will be able to be deployed by different ships. You think harvestables will be able to be turned into drugs? I think that will be part of science gameplay typically, and I think that will be a thing. How much is my appearance fee? Depends what it's for. Typically, I do stuff for free, or a hotel room, or the cost of travel. If it's for, you want me to give a lecture on something that I'd have to research and take time out for, I would probably charge a fee. Depends what it is. If I really like the idea of it, I'll just come along. I love drinking. I love socialising. When I'm in the mood for it anyway. Are you thinking that CIG may be going release Endeavour to release this Endeavour in CitizenCon because of harvesting in 3.7? No. I don't think so. I think the Endeavour's significantly further out. It's a big ship. It's got complex science mechanics, lots of different mechanics. Have you heard any information about the Endeavour? No. There's pretty much nothing about the Endeavour that I have heard over the last year and a half. It is a ship that I want to be asking more about. I'll be doing some videos on science gameplay and farming gameplay and all that sort of stuff in the near future too. Will the Vanguard be playable with gimbals next patch? So you might say the nose mounts on the nose of the ship, they're not going to be gimbaled as far as I'm aware at any point. However, there might be lots of other options for those nose mounts. Maybe they will have some slight movement to them, so they can be used with auto aim, basically auto gimbals. But we know that they are building out other options for its nose weapons. We just don't know when we're getting them. The video bit about personal inventory sounded like they were stepping away from the concept of fully physicalized inventory. Do you agree? The personal inventory, the personal commodity inventory is physicalized inventory light. It is a step towards fully physicalized inventory, but not fully physicalized inventory. It is just you having a backpack, effectively, and being able to magically have a cargo box that you can store everything in. At the moment, anyway, that's what it looked like. So physicalized inventories will be coming, fully physicalized inventories will be coming in the future still, and it's still the plan. Any news on the Nautilus release date? No, apparently, so the last I heard from people in the rumor mill from the Aegis event, the concierge event, was that it looked like it was at the end of its grey box phase, or just coming out of its grey box phase. If it's needed for Squadron 42, it will be in the game next year, probably. But if it's not, then I don't know. Yeah, I think 3.7 brings a huge amount of important multiplayer and PvE gameplay to the game. Lots of busy work, lots of grind work, which should actually be quite enjoyable to some people. How do we tell which side we have chosen for the Spoils of War badge, the minigame for the Nautilus? When you're in a game fighting someone else, it tells you what team you're on. I'm not sure how other ways of seeing it are. But when you're actually in a game of the little mini game, you can see what team you're on. Do you think Inside Star Citizen is stealing Noobifire's format with regards to length of episodes? Will Jared come on soon saying, this is Inside Star Citizen in 1 minute 34 seconds? I do think they're quite short. The last one they did, yesterday's one, Personal Space, it was short, but it at least had a good amount of information in it. I would prefer it to be 10 to 15 minutes long, preferably on the longer side of 15 minutes. And then I would also like to see some more video content, specifically looking at plans for gameplay loops, plans for other ships, the concepts where we are with them, ship shapes, stuff like that. I think it's really, really important. And answering game design questions constantly. That's what the iteration I sort of like want from the game. Them talking about game design for the future, and people sort of wading in there at this stage. How much do you think each mine will cost? Mine type will cost. They're supposed to be reasonably expensive. I would expect them to cost like 15,000 to 40,000 UEC each, sort of thing. Maybe at the sort of like current prices. I mean, make them really expensive, but make them reasonably effective. Probably 15 to 20,000, maybe. Current prices plus gear on them. It could be significantly more than that. Will the Anvil Hawk get reworked? When will the EMP get fixed? So I don't think the Anvil Hawk will see a rework. The Anvil Hawk will get some light updates. Yeah, sure. It will also become functional with the ability to actually use the bounty bed for bounties in the future. And EMPs and distortion weapons are getting reworked and fixed at some point. I just don't know when. I'm right, Gen Desperado, mate. Thanks very much for the love. Appreciated. Jen Cattrall, thank you very much for that resub. Thank you, thank you. One icon on the inventory is poo. Are we collecting animal dung? Yes, we are. One of the items that they showed a while ago was dung that was harvestable. Want to reveal at CitizenCon? Yeah, I do think we will see some animals at CitizenCon. That is one of my expectations. It's, yeah. I'm not sure if they'll be in-game anytime soon. You should have seen dung also. I'm going to bring up one of my videos, which is about to come out. No, stop talking to me. That's not harvestables. So... up again. So these are some of the harvestables that you should see in game. Like the early tests for them, but you see at the end there's actually dung on the far left. Ranta dung. Lovely poo. Delicious. So yes. Who? This new personal commodity inventory system is full of shit. Will you be able to harvest giant sandworm dung? Quite possibly, actually. So I think, what is it, certain nuts are harvested from elephant poo? Like macadamia nuts or something? Harvested from elephant poo IRL. I would also expect, eventually, when they've got animals in game, that you'll be able to big game hunt, potentially kill an animal and skin it, or maybe not skin it, but take organs and parts and trophies from it that'll be valuable. Oh, for Corey Green, thank you very much for the love and support. Very much appreciated. Does anyone have a recommendation for a flight tutorial with the new model? I think I've got a couple up looking at it. Breaking it down into hover mode and the general flight model. Nubifire's probably got a good one as well. When is Cloud Tech being added? So Cloud Tech actually breaks down into 3 separate Cloud Techs. So there's Cloud Tech, which are using for the Odin system and the coil to build nebula, to build corridors of interesting sort of like clouds in space that's going to be used across the game as well. But it's that's the sort of like space clouds. There's Gas Giant Tech, which is going to be used for Crusader, which is coming in 3.9 or 4.0 now. 4.0 now, probably. That makes sense, doesn't it? 4.0? 4.0 for Gas Cloud Tech? Yeah. So 4.0 for Crusader, which is Gas Giant Tech, which will have a very different type of cloud for the Horizon landing zone that you can see, but also just the gas giants be visitable. I mean, it's the only one we're going to have in the standard system, but it's the tech for the future ones as well. And then we also will have dynamic weather at some point, which will have clouds, which is going to be a thing. I suppose we'll also have layered fog as well, which is being put into the game. 3.7 or 4? 3.8? 3.8. 3.8 has planetary ground fog tech and sort of like atmospheric improvements and stuff. We don't know when dynamic weather's coming, but it is being worked on. Occasionally, it's like on and off from a backlog, so done by the Frankfurt studio as well, so it'll be as exciting as when they originally had the procedural tech for clouds. In my opinion, anyway. Hope I didn't ask this before. What does render to texture mean? So render to texture is, well, in the terms of Star Citizen, we talk about render to texture streaming and stuff. So basically, you can have a camera from one area looking at something, and it render directly whatever that camera's looking at on something else in game. They can have sort of like those in-game scenes displayed on screens, and they can have other stuff that exists in the in-game engine being directly streamed or directly displayed on a mobiGlass or a terminal. So you can have sort of like comms chat where you talk to someone on their mobiGlass, that's rendered to texture, but also you can have other scenes and stuff like that, and security cameras and all that sort of stuff play out. That's basically what we're talking when we talk about rendered texture tech that CIG will use. I think they're going to be using it for mirrors, so it literally directly mirrors what it sees. Could you ask devs to see if we can get a ship layout map like the Carrick or for other ships like the Reclaimer? Yeah, I'd love to see proper dev-made ship maps. Or just give the full ship layout to someone, release it to the community. The community will build lots of cool maps. We will see 3D interior maps of things as well. There's an ice cream truck near my house. Huh. I muted my mic. My worry is that it'll be a copyrighted music of some description. Even though it ding 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 ding. Are we going to get drone gameplay with the Carrick? There are going to be drones with the game with the Carrick. I wouldn't expect drone gameplay with the Carrick in 3.8 though. They haven't got it on the roadmap yet, remote drones, although I don't think they're that complicated to get in-game, but it will eventually have drone gameplay, yes. Can the assist mode be turned off? Yes, the hover assist mode, or what the assist mode, the new mode for 3.7 instead of hover mode, can be turned off, yes. Do you know when the Constellation Taurus is supposed to release? I believe it is going to be... No, I don't remember. 3.8? Oh, it's been moved off the roadmap. It's moved off the roadmap. Don't know why. To me, it seems like quite a simple additional edit. But maybe it's not. I don't know when the Taurus is coming. I will find out. I would expect it for by 4.0, but yeah, I'd expect it for 4.0 or by 4.0, so in 3.9 or 3 or 4.0. I just suspect it's one of those things that they've started rescheduling and go, oh, when's it going to lie? When's it going to be in? I don't actually know. We'll talk about that later, sort of thing. Another Carrick will require a crew to run, maybe 3 min. I suspect you could probably run it with 2. But yes, 6 is where it's sort of like its sweet spot is. But do you think I'll be able to at least pilot it on my own? Yes. I think you'll be able to pilot it on your own. I don't think you'll be able to pilot it and defend it on your own. Sweet spot is supposed to be 6, so... any chance you can do what we know about the address? Yeah. There's quite a lot of information out on the address, so I could do some quite good info on it. I'd try and gather some questions about it, I suppose, before I did a what we know, so I can ask the devs. I am a good few minutes behind in chat. It's 12 minutes or so, it looks like at the moment. Typical delay for me. What do you think the chances are that combat will be 100% done and perfect in time for Squadron 42's release? I think it'll be done. I'm not sure if it certainly won't be perfect. It'll be in a good state. There's always going to be stuff they can improve on it. But Squadron 42 won't release without combat and flight being in a extremely good place, in my opinion. Understandable when? Don't know. I suspect it will be a thing in the future, but not in the near future. Can't leave without a Redeemer question. With the Vanguards finishing up, do you think they'll finally move some resources towards its development? Well, apparently, again, rumoured from people that were at the Aegis event, the Redeemer is going to be Aegis brand still, and they've been looking at it. I'm not sure what that actually means. Maybe we'll see it at CitizenCon. Maybe it'll come straight to Flyball. Do you think we'll have a surprise Mercury at CitizenCon? I think it's more of a possibility than I thought it was previously. The Hercules Starlifter is planned for 4.0 currently, and that doesn't preclude the fact that the Mercury might come at the same time or before it, because they're still working out all of the roadmap stuff. It's also a possibility that the Mercury might be a surprise for one of the patches, or for CitizenCon, straight to Flyable, or something like that. But it's also possible that the Mercury has just been rescheduled to be after the Starlifter. I'm doing alright, Stormfire. Thanks very much for asking. I hope you're doing well. Haven't talked to you properly in ages. We'll have to have a catch-up at some point. Why did you choose a Vanguard Hoplite over a Cutlass Black, which is nearly half the price? I think the Hoplite's going to be a lot more armoured, a lot more of a sort of like gunship, more appropriate for landing with troops and then attacking. You get those troops there and back again. A Hobbit's Tale, more safely. Any minimap update? So we know that they're building a 3D map. We know that they want to have to wheel down all the way from space all the way down to a planet's surface and see stuff like that, and then potentially be able to save locations and that sort of stuff. But no no ETA on those updates. Do you think it's something that will show up soon? Yeah, I mean, I think they'll need some form of system for that for Squadron 42. Do you think it's going to be something that we'll see next year? Do you think we'll see more about the Nautilus at CitizenCon? I wouldn't expect to see much more on the Nautilus at CitizenCon. They might talk about it a bit, but not something I'm expecting. When do you think the Orion will become available? If it's needed for Squadron 42, potentially next year. If it's not, then a while out, because it's fucking huge. Will they have a 890 jump sale when 3.6.2 is released? Yes, I would expect the 890 to go on sale for that release, probably this weekend. Even if they do, it will only be for a limited amount of hulls, and it won't be for upgrades. It'll be new ships only, effectively. I understand how logging out will work if you use a bed, but in the future, if I quit the game while walking around a city or a planet, will I pop back where I left off? In the future, yes. That is the way I believe it's going to handle that. However, they might have some sort of more logical system of, yeah, when you spawn back in, you spawn in your hab because you've gone to sleep, or in like a nearby restaurant or a bar or something. Maybe, like, it depends on exactly how they want to do it. They probably don't want players just appearing out of nowhere to other players. So there might be areas that were very close to where you were that you might spawn from. It's less important when you're in deep space, because it's very unlikely you're going to pop back in front of them, or you might be sleeping in a bed or something. So there's some interesting immersion issues that they run into, which I want to see how they're going to solve. If they don't need to solve them, they can just go, well, fuck immersion. It's still a game. But I think CIG and Star Citizen want to be as immersive as possible. And a lot of that stuff isn't worked out fully yet. Do you think the 890 jump will ever be cost effective or viewed as a toy? I think it's always going to be an expensive sort of like status symbol. It might have some good gameplay associated with it in the future, though, with VIP missions and things like that. Like similar to the Genesis Starliner missions, but for VIP guests. Do you think one problem with balance is all combat is locked to a 4K lock-on dogfight range, with some ships are clearly meant for more ranged engagements? Yeah, so... Okay. So one-on-one dogfights are different to how the game is going to play. Okay? And what I mean by that is that when you're in fleet battles, there's lots of different people and lots of different ranges constantly. Yeah, the dogfighters want to be within, what, 2,500 meters? Probably 2,000 meters. But ships that have got, like, you know, a Nautilus want to be at 6,500 meters. It's their sweet spot, and they can keep on disengaging. And the fighters that will be covering it, hopefully, or the hammerheads that we're covering it, will keep the fighters and the shorter range things away, is the idea. Or tie them up while the other ships get the shots on. So, at the moment now, we don't have the correct amount of players, ships, or balance in game to be balanced. We don't have the right amount of items, so we don't have the core of the game isn't there for the flight model and for AI and it's a huge amount of stuff. So, yeah, at the moment, there's problems with dogfighting. It's much closer range than it at all times than it should be. Are you still going to CitizenCon? Yes, 100%. Are you set to go? I'm going down the day before. I've got my hotel and everything there. One of my mates is trying to convince me to stay up with them, which I just feel guilty doing. They've got an Airbnb, but it's slightly further away from the venue, so I'll probably stick at my hotel. I think I've already paid for it. Hopefully CIG will put out we've got past Citizen the day before and after CitizenCon, which I'll go to both of those. And people are around, it'd be great to see them. I'm incredibly approachable IRL. I'll happily chill out and drink and whatever for the whole day with people. Are you playing Classic Route? A little tiny bit. I haven't had much time. I've got, I think I've got like a level 15 warrior. Wasn't massively enjoying it, unfortunately. What do you use to display both Twitch e-chaps? So I've used the Restream.io program to display loads and loads and loads and loads of different chats and information, including my bot stuff and just lots of different things. Lots of different chats, my Discord, all that sort of stuff as well. So I just read from it. It's great for taking questions because it can come from multiple sources. How do you feel about the hover mode changes? Don't know 100% know until they're in my hands. On paper, it looks like exactly what I wanted. And I didn't like hover mode. Well, I liked some parts of hover mode. I didn't like the fact that the landing was in hangars was so dodgy and erratic. Didn't want to constantly be like swinging and sliding. What's with that cargo box oddly spawning the ground? I don't like that. It's just the short-term way they're doing the player commodity system so that you can take commodities out of your inventory and make them detectable on a cargo grid or give them to other players or whatever. Are you right, more father, just me? Love your face. What we got here? You came here for my face. Good job. You can't have it. How will CIG ship 3.7 and 3.6.2 relative to the end of Q3 quarter? What? So we should have 3.6.2 by this weekend, and then 3.7. I would expect it to go to Eva Carty not next week, the week after probably. 3.7 is a relatively small patch. Are there hidden locations in the verse that CIG aren't telling us about and that want us to discover of ourselves? There will be, yes. Lithuanian is amazing for doing those ship blueprints and maps. How am I feeling today? Tired, but okay, thank you. I'm pretty hungry as well. I've been eating like really badly over the last couple of days, so I've like, I'll starve myself a little bit today. Did yesterday's Inside Star Citizen say that hover mode was removed and replaced for 3.7? They said that there was the new... so effectively it's being heavily reworked, is the way I see it. So with 3.7, they are putting in what is known as the IFCS Proximity Assist. Proximity Assist is a feature of IFCS that will automatically detect when you're close to obstacles and will slow your ship's accelerations down to allow for softer, more fine controls. This feature will be intelligent in how it works and won't limit the player from flying at high speeds while low to the ground, but rather this activates only when the player is trying to fly slowly. The player will be able to turn this feature off if they desire. So they basically reworked hover mode. You're not going to be flying like a helicopter is what it sounds like. It's not going to. It's going to be more precise and slow movements and not rocky, shaky, slidey movements. And I don't think that when you face forward, you'll fly like a helicopter anymore. And when you pitch up and pitch down, and when you roll, you'll be moving like that. I think it will be strafe controlled. What is Cyberpunk 2077? A Star Citizen like MMO? No. So Cyberpunk, when it first released, is going to be single player to start with. It is a action RPG game from the Cyberpunk universe. It looks really fucking cool. It's going to be very cool. It's going to be a mixture of sort of like a really cool RP version of Deus Ex sort of thing. But in the Cyberpunk universe is the way I see it. It looks pretty cool. Although some people that saw it at Gamescom said it wasn't as great as you'd think. But I suspect they were seeing some broken alpha-y things for work in progress. It's going to have multiplayer eventually, Cyberpunk, apparently. I'm not sure to what extent. Will it be co-op, or will it be like a versus, or will it be a battle royale? Who knows? Cyberpunk's one of my games I'm looking forward to next year, though. I think it's April next year it comes out. With the new assist mode turned off, will it revert to the old or current hover mode? I don't 100% know. To be honest, I'm not sure if you start to move away if you turn it off, or if it goes into the old hover mode. Has CIG hinted how they're going to be travelling between solar systems? Yeah, there's going to be jump points, which we'll use, but we haven't actually seen jump points in-game properly yet. We saw like a very early mock-up of them a while ago. I'm hoping to see jump points at CitizenCon this year. That's my expectation. When is the Corsair coming? Don't know. It's not on the roadmap. Oh, Revoxer, thank you very much. You sent me bits, which is basically money. Thank you for the money. 300 bits is much bits. Thank you, thank you. I don't know when the Corsair's coming. It's not on the roadmap currently. It's not a super complex ship, though. Why do you think the Sentinel was missing the E-Warfare antenna on the turret and had normal guns on it yesterday? I think the one you saw is potentially just one for testing, didn't have the proper loadouts on. However, the external hulls are pretty similar now. So unless the E-Warfare antenna or whatever is part of its loadout that can be switched out, then I don't think it will have it anymore. It'll have the functionality that it wants, but... will we see more multiplayer gameplay with the addition of mission sharing in 3.7? Yeah, I mean, that's almost the entire idea of it. Mission sharing should allow for proper multiplayer gameplay, reasons to do that. I'm hoping we see some missions which are effectively just harder so that you're more encouraged to do them as a group. Can't just have all this like singly player missions. That makes stuff much better. I don't know when we're going to be able to actually share. When we're going to be able to send monies to each other, because obviously you've got like a cargo ship. Maybe with mission sharing you'll be able to share all the money you make and generate. Maybe they'll put it in at the same time. Maybe they won't. I suspect they probably won't. I want to see the ability to be able to transfer money to players more easily. It'd probably be with the financial app that they actually add that. But I want to be able to do like huge cargo runs, or I want to be able to clear out the Twitch Pacheco mission with all the narcotics there, and then be able to give the money to everyone that helped. Mushes Wolves? What? I can't say it. My brain can't even comprehend your name. Thank you very much for the sub. Very much appreciated. Oh, you legend. A new sub. Board passion is how I describe my lovemaking. Can you pull some strings to give ground vehicles a compass or the ability to target ground bases? Yeah, we need the ability, definitely, to be able to navigate on the ground. We need the ability to mark locations in space and on the ground. And we need the ability to navigate more easily around space and on the ground. Totally agree with you. They are going to be putting some stuff in. They said maybe a compass, but then they went maybe not. And maybe a coordinate system, maybe not. And we'll see something. Has there been any word on the Starliner? I don't think I've heard anything about that ship in a while. We've got the Starlifter coming in 4.0 currently. After the Starlifter's in, I suspect it will be the Mercury next, if the Mercury's not already in for some reason. And then the Starliner a little while later after that. It's got a odd mechanic which isn't needed in the game in the short term. However, they potentially might be needed for Squadron 42. You might see them in some places, although maybe not at the edge of... sort of like Vandal human UE versus aggression no man's zones, admittedly. But you see a lot of the planets in the game. Bear with me 1 second. I just heard something weird. I was worried that something had happened. I think it was someone just loudly using my toilet, not in a disgusting way, like the toilet seat had fallen down or something. But yeah, so a lot of the zones and planets in the Stanton system have like, with their landing zones in their landing areas, the main landing area that actually landed, the starports or spaceports, they have an area for Genesis Starliners to be able to do, be able to take you around the planet or to other planets. I suspect we'll see that in the near future, well, medium sort of like term, year or year and a half sort of thing. I was having a discussion about cargo insurance. Yes, no. What kind of other stuff they might have. No insurance is good. Think cargo insurance is inevitable. What's your opinion? Is it really needed if the game would take... Okay, so I think there might be... I think you might be able to insure large portions of your ship. So from the gear it's got on it to its full loadout and stuff like that. Cargo insurance is an interesting one. So I suspect there will be missions that you can take where effectively you don't have to buy your cargo, but you get less money for it, and that will effectively be cargo insurance. I don't 100% think that we will be able to insure our cargoes other than that. Is there any exploration, gathering things, researching, or building, engineering type stuff? There will be in the future. In 3.7, there is going to be gathering of things. There's going to be lots of different minerals that you can mine by hand. FPS with the multi-tool, you can get an attachment for it to mine. So you can go into caves and things. There's going to be caves in 3.7. You can look for minables, lootables. There's going to be harvestable fruit and dung and lots of other things that you can find. Then in the future, lots and lots more. I've got you streaming up in my TV. Your head looks massive. It is massive. Was the Nautilus close enough to drone ship that you wanted? It was getting there. I want a drone combat ship is what I actually want, and I've wanted for a while. But I mean, it was getting there, wasn't it? It had some drones, had some deployable mines, which is sort of like similar-ish to drones. Do you think CIG should troll flat earthers with a flat planet on April Fool's Day? Yes, I think that would be fucking hilarious. I think they should say that they're going to the Epic Games Store. Questions. So I'm sorry if this was already asked, but do we know exactly when 3.7 will drop in the next time? I'm not entirely sure what you mean. The plan.
I'm that anonymous guy.
Oh, I'm that anonymous guy. Motherfucker! Love your face. Thank you very much. I think that you're a beautiful man. You're not anonymous at all, not in my heart. So I'm thinking you're saying, when is 3.7 going to be released? End of September, end of this month. That's the plan. With the A90 Jump being the only capital ship, is the Reclaimer a capital ship as well? I mean, they're both ships that can only be spawned and land at Lorville and ArcCorp at the moment. Well, I suppose they can land in lots of other places, but successfully spawned, I suppose. Do you think it will be the loaner for all capital ships that are not out? No, not necessarily. I think the A90 Jump will be the loaner for some ships. The Reclaimer will be the loaner for other ships, and you'll have other ships in between as well. Do you expect server-side object container streaming in some form in 3.7? No, 3.8 is the earliest. Is the Carrick still on the schedule for release in 3.8? Yes. Been in mnemonic, mate. I've got like 2 gigabytes in my head, mate. Boom. So what I was trying to say with the Cyberpunk multiplayer is I'm not sure I'm not sure what form of multiplayer the multiplayer will take. So no battle royale apparently in Cyberpunk. Good. Any news on compression? What? Hello, board. Do you think they will implement immersive cargo loading and unloading? Yeah, they wanted to have a cargo load and unload system, which is timed commodity timers. So ships are going to be effectively out of action while they're transferring cargo. There will be a cost associated with that, that sort of thing. So if you see this. Quantity transfer timers 3.9 Q1 of 2020. It's the unloading and unloading of cargo on your ship as a timed feature at least before your ship is now ready again when you buy cargo or when you sell it. I think eventually that might be partly physicalized, although I don't think it's actually that important. It'd be cool if it can be physicalized. It doesn't matter if it's not. In my opinion, anyway. Jock Cop donated monies in case I don't get a chance to meet you at CitizenCon and buy you a drink. Here, have one on me. Are you coming to CitizenCon? If you are, then I will go out of my way to try and meet you, mate. Thank you very much. Very much appreciated. Love your fucking faces. 5 stars. Thank you, thank you. Try and power through these last few questions because I think Star Citizen Live will be starting soon, and they are talking more about Staggered development and that sort of stuff, and we can start watching that together. If it's boring, I'm just going to go and fuck off and get some food. If it's great, then we can talk about it while they're playing it. Will they be improving the abysmal character creator anytime soon? Yeah. So there is a plan to update the UI on it and to add more faces to it. I'm not sure if we're getting that. Oh no, we are getting it in 3.7. We're getting the first update. We're getting character customization system v2 in 3.7, which is the end of this month. They're adding more faces to it, they're adding more functionality to it, and they're making it look better. Any chance the Mercury comes out before the C2 Hercules? Yes, there is a possibility that it's coming out before then. Might be a straight to live ship, or it might be a ship that they've got planned that they haven't put on the roadmap yet. Was it half off subs this month? Is that why people are subbing? Sub away! Sub! 50% off! Woo! You don't get the better time to use your parents' credit card. Woo! Needs work. Has there been any word on when or if they're going to open up other star systems? Nope, there's no word on that yet. They need server-side object container streaming and I believe static server meshing in the game. And static server meshing is planned for next year. So they need that in-game to then be able to have more systems open up. Because at the moment, the server is running the whole instance. Will they be able to put players in prison or jail in the game? Yes, there is a plan for different types of criminal sort of like punishments and that sort of stuff. Some of which will be prison time, some will be jail time, some will have gameplay stuff associated to them. So they want to have that in. Oh, thank you very much. Greetings from the UK. Spain. Thanks, Felix. Appreciate it. What are your thoughts on the removal of hover mode and the new proximity assist? Yeah, I love the idea of the new proximity assist on paper. I'm not sure if it's the full removal of the new hover mode, thinking about it now, though. It might just be some reworking of it. And then, obviously, you can still toggle the proximity assist mode on and off. So maybe it will be quite hovery still when you turn it off. Is there any news when they're going to OpenPTU for all? I would expect OpenPTU or live build for 3.6.2 today. Have you any word on the names and specs for the 890 jump components that are listed as placeholder? No, I'm not. It's because they probably haven't fully worked out the capital size components yet. So our backpack's going to be able to transform onto a small cargo box. The items that are in our personal commodity inventory are going to be able to transform into a small cargo box. You can drop them in down individually, or we can go drop all as a cargo box. A dumb question, when the cops scan you while you just left the port with no cargo, what do you do? Let them scan you. Yes, let them scan you, otherwise they'll give you a criminal rating. But your thoughts on the need for a mid-sized salvage ship? I'd like to see modules to allow ships to do salvage. A mid-sized salvage ship would also be cool, right? Star Citizen Live today is supposed to be looking at the Staggered development model and questions on that. Do you think the Reclaimer will take part in Salvage V1 or another smaller salvage ship launch? Yes, I think the Reclaimer will be able to strip hulls in Salvage V1 in the same way that the Prospector mines. I think it'll be a very similar mechanic to start with. And there's going to be apparently some forms of hand-based salvage at that stage as well. It is September, it is indeed. Tech, they got really quiet over this feature. I think they're still working on it. You might see some more hairstyles in 3.7. I think you'll see better and better hair, but you won't see the mad individual splined hair that they were sort of like, this is a possibility. It's a possibility, but it's madness. What ships are you most excited about or interested to see in game? The Carrick is a huge one. The Prowler is a cool one. The Banning Merchantman is something I desperately want. The Endeavour, the Orion. I mean, the capital ships, the Idris and the Javelin. I want to see it all come together more than anything else. Do you still get the full amount of money for subs, or do you get less because they're half off? I suspect I get the same amount still. That makes sense, doesn't it? I don't actually know. I haven't checked. I appreciate all the love and the promotion that my community is shamelessly doing for me. Appreciate it. Next star system, your guess. So probably sort of like we're going to be having the Nyx and the Pyro system, Magnus system. Those are the sort of like two that are the most likely. They're proximate to Stanton, and they're pretty simple to do, in my opinion. And then they probably go towards Nyx, and then towards the Odin system from there. That makes sense. The Nyx leak isn't really a leak. So we've got, in Stanton at the moment, we've got Delamar, which is supposed to be in the Nyx system, with Levski on it, which is supposed to be in the Nyx system, and any structure for folders you've seen makes sense that they'd have that still in a folder called Nyx. But I do agree that Nyx is likely to be a system we see very soon still. Where's my Taurus, to paraphrase a movie? It's not on the roadmap again. It's been moved off. I would expect it to be dropped in between now and 4.0 though. Will players be able to sell their ships bought for real money for UEC in-game or elsewhere? In the future, yes. When the game goes live, or when they add that functionality, you will be able to sell it for UEC in-game. Do you think there's a chance that the Carrick could go flyable at CitizenCon? There is a chance. There is a chance. But I think it's very low. More likely to have ships straight to flyable at CitizenCon that are not on the roadmap. And the last few questions in now before we attempt to do a watch party for Star Citizen Live. If there's any interesting info there. When the release of the Taurus, are they set to fix bugs in the Andromeda and Aquila? I think that's an iterative process from patch to patch anyway. I think they will keep on trying to improve them and fix them. If you are being overly optimistic, what would you guess that the big reveal at CitizenCon would be? I think it will be a lot of big reveals. I think it will be Squadron 42 release date will be the biggest reveal. How did you let them scan you? I sat there and they attacked me for no reason. Oh, were you... They shouldn't have. Unless you had narcotics on you, unless you had attacked someone, unless you had a criminal rating. With the current version of armors, is there any significant difference between light, medium, and heavy armor? Just a percentage of damage reduction. I prefer movement speed at the moment. So light armor's pretty effective because you get good movement speed, and Star Citizen is very sort of like battle prediction and laggy. So it's the first person to shoot the other person is typically the one that wins. Odin is obviously a system that's being built out for Squadron 42. That makes sense. But I'm expecting that we'll go Pyro, Nyx, and then towards the Odin system, bam. Do you think Star Citizen should follow or avoid what Elite Dangerous is doing with PvP? Don't entirely know what that means, unfortunately. I'll look more into ED and what they've done with this stuff recently. Do you really think we can expect the ticks and mining robots in game? Yes, I think we'll see the Cygnus drones. I mean, they're listed in the Squadron 42 roadmap. Cygnus spider drones for the end of this year for Squadron 42, and they will almost certainly be in Star Citizen at some point. What else we got? How far am I behind? Only 2 minutes behind now. Fucking win. What's the one class of ship that has been announced but not released? Battle cruisers. Battle cruisers, I think, were sort of announced in the stretch goal. Do you think they will give us all a defender in the PTU for 3.7? In the PTU phase, probably. For the Evocardian early testers, almost certainly. Right, I will be back in 1 second after a quick bio. Star Citizen Live should be on in a second as well. They're 4 minutes, it's going to start. Right. Let me put this on here for you. Be right back. I'm a coming. Ugh. Oh, perfect timing, mate. I say perfect timing. A minute early. Not perfect timing. Right, let's turn off this music by Pedra. Put this volume up. Make this full screen. Let's do this. Actually, while I'm doing that, let me grab this and pull this up here. So we are going to be watching, at least if it's interesting, the All About Development Star Citizen Live. Pardon me. Got here. Would it be crazy to think that Star Citizen will hit beta by the end of 2021? Yes. So, okay. So I will need to revise and explain more about when I've said about betas and stuff. So an actual beta really is feature complete, but not. It doesn't necessarily have to be fully finished or all of the gameplay area built out or anything. But it should be relatively feature complete. So that's going to be a while for Star Citizen.
Hello, everybody. This
Good
is
job.
an audio test. This is the sound of my voice. Hey, Todd, what does your voice sound like?
Sounds big.
Oh, I've got Todd Pappy.
And dark.
Full of terrors.
Chances of a
terror.
battle cruiser at
This is
CitizenCon?
Brian, and
Could have
this
a
is what my
concept
voice
for one.
sounds like.
Probably not
Brian.
released.
Oh, hey, Jared. I didn't know you were there.
I didn't know you were there. We can't see anything. We're just looking at a logo right now.
It's all right.
All right. I think
It's a
we're
nice
good.
logo.
It is. I think.
Volume all right for them?
Oh my God, I can't remember the name of the person who made it for us. Hannes. Hannes made it for us. Maybe I can- All right, we're going to start in just a few minutes, guys. Thanks.
Yeah, so Star Citizen can and should use all of the sort of like different elements from Elite Dangerous, Eve, WoW, No Man's Sky, Warframe. It should use lots of different elements from them and working out what it should do for the future. It's one of the joys that Star Citizen has. It's got a long development cycle, which means they can get things hopefully right. Can you hear that appropriately? Too loud? Not too loud? In between?
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Star Citizen Live, all about
love you, Ryan
development.
Chambers.
I'm your host, Jared Huckabee. And on today's show,
Oh, I love you,
we're
Jay
going to be
Bird.
answering
Hope
questions
you're doing well, mate.
about a broad spectrum of topics related to Star Citizen's overall development, our new Staggered development initiative, and of course, changes to the roadmap. Joining us on the show this week, for the first time in quite a while, the three amigos are back together again. Todd and Brian, how are you guys doing?
Good. Am I Chevy Chase or Steve Martin? I prefer Steve Martin since I'm gray.
I think with our dynamic, you are Steve Martin, and Brian is definitely Chevy Chase, and that leaves me to be Martin Short, which is not ideal. But
It makes sense, though.
but in this situation, I like to perceive. I think of myself as a Steve Martin, but in this dynamic, I'm the Martin Short.
All right, well, great show, guys.
Yep.
It's hard to.
Sweet.
It's hard to so if you haven't watched Star Citizen Live before, this is where we take questions from our community and answer them live on
Hope
Twitch.
they've got some good answers.
And it's been a while since we've seen Todd and Brian, so before we jump right into the questions, let's take a few minutes, tell folks who you are and what you do for Star Citizen.
That's Todd Pappy's just
My
normal,
name is
bit
Brian
resting
Chambers.
face.
I am the Vice President of Development.
Normal face.
I work with Chris and the directors and really closely with Aaron Roberts just to make sure we're on track, set priorities of where we're going, and make sure that we deliver what we need when we need.
I'm Todd Pappy, Star Citizen Live Game Director. So that means I focus on the releases. And then I also work with Chris and the other directors, Brian and Aaron, and make sure that the vision that we set is basically passed along to the team and make sure that everything is at the quality level that we want to hit.
Oh, is there an audio delay? Sorry.
Now, I should say that later on in the show, we're going to be joined by a third member, Chad McKinney. We had a couple questions come in over the week about server-side OCS, and we want to be able to address some of those. And Chad is our person to do that. He is actually in a meeting right now with Chris Roberts and others about server-side OCS. So when he's done with that, he's going to come. He's going to join us here next to the table there. So we're going to put those questions off until he can join us and just jump right into it. Right off the bat, why did we decide to switch to staggered development now?
So is the delay coming?
Well,
is the audio before or
obviously
after?
for 3.0 we were very feature driven.
Speaking.
And what happened was things just kind of kept on coming in, and the date just kind of kept on getting pushed back. Obviously, when we switched over to 3.1.3.2, then we from there we were going through and setting up a certain cadence, where we were supposed to be more date driven. And that was working for us for 3.1 through 3.4. However, some of the features that were coming in were still rough and rougher than we would like. Obviously, for 3.5, 3.6, we didn't release on time, and a lot of the features just kept on coming in later and later and later. So with 3.7, 3.8, we've really started to move over to this where, depending on the size of the feature,
Is that better?
For
That's
most
300
of our
seconds
features,
delay.
it takes
300
longer
milliseconds
than
or 300 seconds.
basically 3 sprints to get it working. So that's 6 weeks that we're talking about, and getting it to be the quality level that we want it to be. So in this case, for example, let's say mining. Our first iteration of mining, that took us, it took that team 6 months to basically deliver everything that needed to be done. However, other teams that are smaller or depending on the size of the feature, they'll be able to do those in the smaller time frame. However, we were just noticing that, and we were feeling it internally of this cycle that we were getting into, as well as the product that we were putting out, wasn't hitting our mark. And basically the teams were frustrated. We were frustrated. And so we started talking about it internally, how we can adjust things and try this out and see how it works. Now, the goal for it obviously is that we have what we call a go, no-go meeting, kind of in the middle of the quarter. And at that point in time, that is the directors, including Chris and Aaron and Brian, taking a look at the features and saying, yeah, this is good enough. This hits the quality bar. And what should be happening is basically all future work is done on that thing. It's just minor bugs at that point in time. Then from there, that gets dropped into the stream, and it's good.
Gojira! That better?
Before we weren't having that. Some teams were, some teams weren't. So therefore, some of the quality level, was there, and some of it wasn't.
This is live.
So this allows us to actually, make sure that there is that gate, of quality level, and this also gives the teams a chance to say, okay, yeah, for some reason, whether there was a vacation or somebody got sick or this feature was more complicated, there's a lot of times when we put things together, we have our best estimate of, hey, this is how long it'll take. And every now and then we hit that, and every now and then it goes a little bit longer. But this allows us to look at the feature and make sure that it's hitting that quality level, and then gives us basically 6 weeks to make sure that we're hitting Evocati, we're hitting basically wave 1 at a good time. We're making sure that the quality of life bugs that we have are getting worked on and getting fixed. Features aren't getting dropped in like 3 weeks before we go live.
Yeah, I guess an important part of that one too for me is that it's then our releases are solid on being date.
So the new stack development,
if a feature's not ready,
allows them to.
We're not going to hold up that quarter release
patches out
because of a feature.
The new way they're doing it.
That kind of does everyone a disservice.
They're releasing.
So we have these meetings where we judge. We
on
look,
time.
as Todd says, we go, you know what, this is ready. Awesome.
They're taking 6 months.
No, it's not. It needs more time. That unfortunately
on a staggered sort of cycle, so you're still getting quarterly releases.
But we think it's more important just to keep the cadence going to the releases. It means the team immediately is addressing those issues without working on bugs while they're.
What Brian said, they could have stuck with that on just the
end as well.
Previous development cycle.
I think one of the hallmarks of Star Citizen's development is the constant iteration and reevaluation of our processes. I mean, we want to get better at making the game, just as we want the game itself to get better. So these kind of changes are in our DNA and have been since the very beginning.
Yeah, but the other thing that I think people need to understand is normal game development. You just run. You run until the very end, and then you get to alpha, and then you look at it, and you're like, oh, I created a huge mess. Now I got to clean it up. And I got to clean up before beta. And when beta happens, then you're like, okay, now I got to really polish and tune the game and, have this iteration aspect. Obviously, having a live product and having a live product.
Thanks for watching my just random
the very beginning
watching of something else.
This product creates challenges that, sometimes you're used to, sometimes
I'm interested to know if their 6 month cycle.
It is a learning
staggered development
for all
means
of us.
that
he's been making games for a long
If
time.
they finish a
I've been making games
feature,
for a long time. This is a very
do they work on the
unique
backlog,
beast,
or do those guys then
of
move
a
on
game.
to what's
Challenges and
their
opportunities.
basic plan for what
It's
they move on
definitely a
to?
double-edged
They start
sword.
working on backlog features.
There are things that
They
we
work
have
on
to
the next
account for, but
patch.
there's also a lot of benefits to
Do they
running
just
that
keep
live
on
environment. The
polishing the
ability to
feature?
get feedback, that instant, tangible feedback, during the development process that can guide us, each step along the way.
Completely agree with that. But at the same time, sometimes it does feel like you're building a railroad track while you're in the train, on it. But at the same time, like you said, getting that feedback does help us out a hell of a lot.
Absolutely, a ton.
All right. Next question. Can we in the words of our the backers, can we focus less on ships and more on profession mechanics and gameplay?
GIF
Also,
gameplay.
Any updates on future professions?
So with ships, well, I mean, we have ships that we are building, and that we've basically done concept sales for, so on and so forth. So that pipeline is just running. As far as
man's got
what
a
we
lollipop
consider
in his
careers
name.
or professions, I view those, and I think all of our system designers view it as a collection of different activities. And what we're doing is we're really building activities. And then once those activities come together, then you have something that would be considered a profession. So
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it.
PU standpoint,
Lots of different activities which eventually are bundled together as a profession.
we have our priorities that we need to do, and then we have our what we consider S42 priorities. And from our development standpoint, S42 is the number one priority. So most of the team and most of the resources are focused towards that. And then basically we have what we would consider solely S42, and then we have kind of a S42 PU, and then we have PU only. So if those professions or things are not needed in S42, they're not going to get as much love. So for right now.
In the immediate, yeah.
Yeah, in the media, until S42
But
is
this
done. And
so a lot of the problems we're
ready
having
to
with the
go,
development at the
then
moment
that point in
is
time,
the focus on Squadron
the
42 is
floodgates will
causing
open up more on the PU, and then
the
we'll be able
persistent universe to get
push back
less
around those things.
new
But
features
we do
in.
have resources that are solely focused on PU and solely, working on aspects of that, meaning, for example, mining, or basically what we would consider resource gathering. So whether that be mining, salvaging, harvesting, we have a team that's focused on that stuff. Then we have, teams that have been focused more towards like cargo and those things. So, but that team has been also working on scanning and other aspects that we consider very integral to both projects. So the priority is for them to finish that first before they move back onto like cargo.
All right.
My worry.
The next question from the chat is why are
Sorry, I think the last thing was, what are the professions that we're looking at?
what are the current status of professions right now?
Well, I mean, mining is in progress, and so we've done basically, obviously, prospector mining. We will need to do Orion mining once that starts getting ready. We've done, or we're working on FPS mining. From there, we've got obviously salvage, but again, all of those to me are kind of resource gatherers. Then we have very early stages for kind of trading. I wouldn't really consider it hauling, but basically trading. And then there's piracy, there's security, or basically mercenary.
Brian Chambers has
and
amazing.
bounty hunting. And those would be the kind of the first five that we would be focusing on. And then there would be kind of secondary ones, which would be like refueling, rearming, that kind of stuff.
Okay. From the chat, why are long-standing bugs not being addressed in every patch? Some bugs we've been waiting for over a year to fix now.
So I think it really depends on the bug. For example, I know that there's one in there that drives everybody nuts. It drives me nuts as well, which is the HUD in particular. When you look at certain
you can't see shit. Yeah,
right.
And that is something that just hadn't been prioritized because we know that we're redoing the HUD. We know that we're adjusting it. We have had initial talks regarding how to fix that thing, and then at least for me, it's what I consider a quality of life experience that will need to get fixed. So ideally, I would like it to be fixed sooner than later. However, when we look at these kind of the staggered development, again, if we're building
Ryan
features
Chambers,
and we need to release it, let's say this time
more of a
frame,
management
and you're
level
building features
understanding
up
of Star
right
Citizen and
here,
the teams and stuff, but
then
not
it
necessarily
leaves you
as
less
much
time to actually build
specific
or to
gameplay
fix.
knowledge.
Versus if you turn off
Todd
the features
Pappy,
here, then
talk about game
it gives you more
design, talk
time
about
to fix
gameplay
these
features with
bugs
him all day.
and work through the
Ryan
quality of
Chambers
life.
is more of a manager of people. He has an understanding of the project. He knows what some of the people are doing,
and myself,
but he doesn't necessarily
QA to go through and
individual
look at
tasks.
the bugs and say, okay, we feel like this is a big one. Same with working with player relations, and those get prioritized in what we would consider a gameplay experience aspect, and whether that be a moderate or trivial or just a minor bug versus only focusing on criticals and blockers. So we've changed our pipeline to actually get those incorporated into getting fixed throughout the quarter as well. So you will start seeing those quality of life issues be slowly resolved.
That's been a push with you and the other guys for probably a good 3, 5, 6 weeks now.
Yeah. For me, it started longer.
Yeah,
but it started in April.
About us actually getting them in production, talking it through with QA and so on, to where we're really going, okay, well, it's so easy as we kind of go back to the previous question, building the tracks while you're on the train. We're moving so fast, moving forward, and looking at these future things. We really need to stop, and it was everybody taking the time and Todd taking the initiative to go, well, there's some bugs that have been there for a while, and
they are going to be addressing.
We don't like them either. So actually,
some bugs
let's take the time,
in the shorter term,
take a breath,
as well.
Put them on the roadmap, or
rather than just going, we know we're going to fix them in later.
So, as Todd said, with releases, we're slowly whittling away.
The new patches that they're bringing out from 3.8 onwards, anyway,
I think
should be significantly better quality of life wise,
when we take
playability-wise,
these bugs into
and
account,
features should be
we know
more
internally
meatier,
kind of roughly when we think we're going to be.
But we're getting less features from patch to patch, effectively.
For example, the UI. We know that we're redoing that ship UI right now. So if we have an MFD bug, then we might be looking at saying, okay, is that going to be fixed based off of us doing the new?
Yeah, we
MFDs?
are basically volunteer QA,
or or can we live with
in
it
the
for a
PTU
little while?
phase, especially.
So there's that kind of juggle that we do,
Yeah, we are.
And
effectively,
you don't want to put in a fix that's going to be overwritten by the new UI in just a couple.
We don't want to waste time.
Yeah.
We want to be as efficient as we possibly can, and then it's just us looking at it and saying, okay, do we really think that, let's say in the next 6 weeks, do we feel like this is going to get resolved, or in the next 3 months? Yeah, okay, then we won't do it. But that's kind of the juggling act that we go through every quarter.
And that's a big part. You touched on this a bit, but it's a big part of why this new Staggered development initiative is taking place. It's that desire to have more time to spend addressing bugs and addressing these quality of life issues. So if all things go as we hope,
so I'm hoping this doesn't.
This will
thanks very much. I've got lovely hair.
Overall, an improved
if someone put some stupid shit on my hair.
Bugs,
no, it's good. We're good.
Being addressed.
We're nice.
I mean, I've never seen a game developer get it right the first time.
And again, thank you very much.
It's through constant iteration.
Very much appreciated.
And so allowing us to work on it more, giving it a more polished experience.
My worry
is that means
it's going to slow down development slightly.
Have less bugs
at the very least
associated with that feature.
Well, probably.
Next question. Let's see here. How much is the
slow them down less than having to keep on going back and redoing stuff?
This one is actually for me. It says, why was the second Pillar Talk video not about pillars?
It wasn't about 3.7.
The specific term was coined by Chris Roberts himself, outlined in the CitizenCon 2948 Road to Release presentation. Is this an indicator that those pillars have been abandoned and replaced by other goals? Absolutely not. When we make Pillar Talk, obviously we've only done 2 episodes of Pillar Talk, so we are still exploring format and all the different areas that we can touch on with that particular format. For this second episode, we had Aaron here. He was visiting the studio at the time, and we knew we were moving toward. We had already moved towards this Staggered development initiative, and we thought this was a good opportunity to have him talk about that very candidly with John and Eric, and attempt to shed some light about why we're doing a lot of the things that we're covering here today. In the future, Pillar Talks will continue to address pillar issues. They'll have pillar directors. It's just, if the show was only going to be about stuff that was specific to a patch, we probably would have called it Patch Talk. So we're 2 episodes in.
I can't.
We're exploring the format of this.
I'd love to have
you'll
Brian
continue
James
to see it
Haley
develop and iterate just like you see anything else with Star Citizen.
Sorry, do you hear his mic pop?
It's
Yeah, I keep
it's
hearing
his
your mic
right.
pop.
It's
Keep
your
hearing
right
my
arm,
mic.
Jared.
Yeah.
Oh no, but I think there's
No, it's your right arm brushing against your shirt
At
repeatedly.
the same time.
Okay.
Okay. Next question. This is an oldie. We used to get real design documents in the past that gave us at least a moderate glimpse of what a mechanic was and how CIG is planning on it affecting gameplay. Can we please go back to getting these deep dive documents into
deep dive.
a list of variety of professions?
So with that, I mean, we've internally changed the way that we do things.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times with those documents, they went into.
Managers don't necessarily need to be
very,
smarter
very
than the
deep
people around
detail.
them. They need to be more organized and
And
get them to work more efficiently.
I don't think that we've
And
hit all of those details once
as a group.
on one thing. So internally we have what we consider a tier 0, tier 1, tier 2 kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And also I'm getting feedback.
Come on in, Chad. Go ahead. They're hearing some kind of noise, JJ.
I think one of
I'm
them
not hearing
farted.
I'm good. Bring Chad down. Just bring Chad out entirely. Oh, Chad's muted. It's not Chad.
I still got.
Right? Well, then, while they work on that, maybe adjust your volume mix there in Teams.
Hopefully it won't come through here.
There. While JJ works on that, let's go ahead and move to the OCS questions, and we'll come back to the design question as soon as we get Todd and them resolved. So, Chad.
Yes.
Come on down, closer here. So,
Hey, chat.
the number one question that was submitted, was voted on, is what is the status of server-side OCS?
Oh, what a question.
What
a question.
Server meshing. Can server meshing even be delivered before server-side OCS is complete? So let's just take it one piece.
Need it before server meshing, obviously.
So let's just start you off.
Oh, I knew we were going to get it. The jump scare.
Very good question. I'm going to give a long-winded answer.
Do it, because apparently we need the time.
Okay, so to understand kind of server OCS and frame it within context, I think there's a few things we have to understand. First is kind of where we came from. Next is where we're at right now, and then where we're going. So where we came from is the original engine.
The Cthulhu t-shirt on.
CryEngine in now Lumberyard. It does.
Okay, actually, hold on, Chad. Looks like we're having an issue with the audio with the broadcast as well.
Okay.
So I don't want you to have to go through it at the same time.
I'm sure it's my fault.
All right. Kill the broadcast.
Kill the broadcast. Kill the broadcast. Right. Well, that's interesting. So hopefully we're like the way Jared just. Like it was the most important thing ever. Oh man, funny shit. Right. So we will be back with that in a second when we come back up with that potentially. So they're obviously having audio problems there, which is not great for them. But yeah. So basically, from what I understand, and my worries with Staggered development. So Staggered development is them having two sets of goals for two separate sets of teams when it comes to the persistent universe. Okay, and they are doing it with the Squadron 42 as well, but I'll explain it in a very basic way. So they'll have a team working on 3.7, and they'll have a team working on 3.8, or sets of teams working on features for those. Yeah, when the team finishes work on 3.7, and that branch is done, they then start working on 3.9, and there's still those teams working on 3.8, which can then immediately branch their work out. So they've got a separate branch with all of the sort of like goodness and updates that 3.7's brought back into the dev branch. Bam, it goes to the dev branch. Then they branch out to 3.8, and then they start working on that. When they're done with that, they start working on 4.0, and then the guys that were working on 3.9 branch out and with the 3.9 branch, and bam, you have a cycle like that. And effectively, that means rather than constantly working for 3-month stints, they work in 2 sets of 6-month stints, which made up new words, that overlap each other. Now, there are some good points to that. That means that you're going to have less bugs. You're going to have, at least this is what they've said, they're going to have less bugs. They're going to have, CG, indeed, they're going to have less bugs. Other than what's happening here. Features should be more complete. So rather than like straight tier 0 or partly implemented features, you have more implemented features. And all the mechanics should be working together. Stuff should be more playable. A lot more quality of life stuff. And that makes sense. It makes sense. However, there are some problems with that because you're still getting a patch every 3 months. So what's really changed? Well, what's changed is they're producing less features from every quarterly patch. Is effectively the only way I can see it working, because they're working in these 6 months spates or whatever, or sprints, very long marathons, and they're producing less new features, but focusing on the current features to get them in a much more finalized state. So is that going to be faster for development? We don't actually know. And we won't know until we sort of like see some more progress, whatever. In the short term, much better idea, because the focus is on Squadron 42. They can get to these major core features into the game, get them working, get them playable. They've been marketing since 3.0 Star Citizen as a much more playable product, even though it's not been, even though it's still been sort of like very, very alpha. So it sort of like matches what they want to do for marketing and probably fundraising as well. Kill the broadcast! Fix that yet? No, they have not. We'll be right back. We're going to address the technical issues and then restart. Hang tight. We switched it to subscribers only in the chat. So, yeah, my worry is that is that going to take significantly longer for development? Maybe. We don't know. It's certainly... I don't expect it to shorten the development down. However, you certainly could argue that features being in a much better state than being able to hit deadlines and not have interim patches should mean that they're not constantly reworking stuff. They've got longer to spend on stuff, so they don't need to rework. They can immediately move on to the next set of patches. There's a significant amount of time saved from the planning process and the rescheduling process. So, yeah, lots of good stuff there. But what do they do when they've completed a set of features and they've got like a month left? Do they continue to polish? Do they move on to other tasks? Do they move on to the backlog? I would expect them to move on to the backlog with stuff. Oh, thank you very much. Zifuro Gaming, thank you very much for the sub. Oh my god, Robert Johnston, I didn't even say that. So Zifuro Gaming, thank you very much for the sub. Namaste. Robert Johnston, though, 100 fucking New Zealand dollars. I love you. Are you still here? I thought I told you to fuck off. I love you. Robert Johnston literally paying me relatively regularly to tell me to fuck off. Thank you very much. Oh my god. So much money for someone that just literally talks things that fill their heads and then explode outwards.
Tricksy little hobbits.
Thank you very much, Netstorm. Very much. Oh, look at the subs. CIG plus live equal dumpster fire. Look, they've been getting better. They occasionally make mistakes. They don't have a proper professional super team to do their streams. I think it's a little bit more homebrew. I mean, they've obviously got professionals there. Sometimes stuff happens, though. Sometimes problems happen.
Tricksy little hobbitses.
But apparently, not doing anything rather than just talking has made Golnalf the resub for 2 months. Thank you very much. And lots of money appear in my bank account. So, Netstorm, Zerofo, Golnanth, Whatever your name is. Thank you very much. And Robert Johnston, oh my fucking god, you're my favourite. You are my favourite person, Robert Johnston, today. Thank you very much. What else have we got here? Any other questions? People got questions? I mean, yeah, I'm hoping that teams that finish their projects and that haven't got any other specific major parts to do, well, obviously they'll probably have plans what to do with those teams. They might start working on 4.0 features, the next patch features, even if it's out of sync. They might help with other tasks, yeah, but I'm hoping they move on to backlog issues. Sub hype. Thank you very much for the sub hypes. Thank you. Thing is, they weren't really working on 3-month cycles before, and we don't really know how much has changed. Yeah, they weren't great at accurately getting the patches out every quarter on a deadline. CIG don't do deadlines well. You're bored. What board gamer? So why don't they ever talk about ship rentals? In your opinion, if they do not have ship rentals out in 3.7, I will go fucking mental. More mental than I already am. Yeah. So I can't believe that we've been waiting for ship rentals for so long. Like, they needed to have ship rentals in before we could buy ships in game, and they went, "Oh, we'll put ship purchases in." Surely ship rentals are more simple than ship purchases. In my opinion, anyway. So there's no real excuse for that, in my opinion. Maybe they wanted to have... well, I'll make an excuse anyway. Maybe they wanted to have better UIs or better HUDs for it, or they wanted a better system, or there was a reason for it. But I just think they needed to get it in ages ago. They could have got it in ages ago. I'm not sure why they're so tardy on it. It might have been they're worried it will damage their sales for ships. I'm having ships rentals in. It was supposed to be in the 3.6 branch. They pretty much promised that. It's not. It's in 3.7 now. 3.7 is only a few weeks away, though. So, yeah, as long as it's in 3.7, I won't go really angry about it. But it needs to be in 3.7. I'm not sure what I'd provide to CIG if they hired me. I'd probably do less than I do now. Disco has a tough job, yeah, 100%, and he does good with a lot of stuff. I think a lot of the problems that CIG have with some of their video content isn't necessarily his fault, and he does make good stuff. I don't think it's $3 million worth a year, but it is certainly good. Some of the stuff he's done. I mean, I want him to bring back Calling All Devs. I do like when they have good episodes of Inside Star Citizen. Star Citizen Live, other than the problems they've had here, is sometimes really good. The plan is to have 3.7 and all future patches hitting deadlines. I mean, I think we'll start to see the staggered development much better in 3.8 than 3.7. And 3.7 effectively is a cut down patch. But yeah, I think we'll see 3.7 on time. Again, that is obviously very hopeful of me, but that's what basically CIG have suggested. Bring this down here. There's no point in having it at the top of my screen anymore. I've got some ads coming through. Do you think they will have other concept sales soon because I love buy ships? You'll probably see. So 3.7 might see some more ships. Might see some straight to flyable things, straight to drivable vehicles. You'll see on the 23rd of November almost certainly some new ships with CitizenCon, and probably a concept sale or vehicle in between now and then as well. Ship rentals, in my opinion, aren't that much more complicated than buying a ship. They basically, you own the ship for the duration, that's the way they're doing it for ship rentals, as I believe, for the duration of that period. So you own it for 3 days, you own it for 5 days, and you pay, bam. I don't see how that's too complex. Maybe I'm missing something. It's possible. Oh.
Pretty much where we're at on server-side OCS. Thank you for spending your time going through that lengthy...
It's been a pleasure.
It makes so much sense now.
Wow.
Hey guys, we're back. Obviously, some unfortunate technical difficulties that crept in halfway through the show, but we think we've got them resolved now. So, all right. We've
Gonna cut the
Chad
string
here.
'cause of tough
You know, he's getting
questions.
Back, so we're going to do the server-side OCS, then we'll go back to the design question. So, Chad.
When it's Line of Defense coming out, wasn't it on the final stretch in 2012? I don't think it's coming out properly, in my opinion. That game ever.
Like I said, I wanted
maybe
to
it's
talk
just
about
a project
the past and the present and future as far
for
as
the
as well as kind
old
of server
battlecruiser
meshing.
guy.
To start with the engine that we had, CryEngine, and now Lumberyard, it's a
I disagree.
based engine.
Backwards, we'll talk about that in a second.
There's no
There's
entity streaming in the engine like stock. You know, something made for like, you know, whatever, deathmatch games. We, years ago now, made a large set of changes to the engine to create something called object containers, which is our own grouping of entities as well as level data like brushes and things like this. Planning years in advance where we want to.
He's just explaining object container streaming.
And in the future. So that was a huge push. That was a foundational set of changes.
I disagree. Talking about Disco Lando, I think he's making poor editorial choices, not all the time, but lately he seems to have not been. He seems to have been quite out of touch with expectations of the community.
Unbind entities.
I think it was mainly
and then
the QA episode, which was poor,
last year,
and he isn't producing enough content.
Which now everyone's familiar with.
So I need more content
the object container
for $3 million a year. I mean, obviously I'm not paying $3 million a year either.
Basically unbinding and binding those object
Voluntary subs are.
So that was a multi-year effort there.
I think some of the stuff's been great.
Now we're at the point
Some
where
of it's
we're
been a failure. I think there needs to be more of
trying
it.
To do the same. We are definitely going to do the same.
Not less, and they've been putting less in.
And this is itself a very large effort, and it started actually kind of in full force last year. And this is like kind of the present part where we actually had a big summit where we got the programming disciplines together over in Germany, and we had a week-long kind of really deep dive on the real specific implementation details for the effort across the entire game, including the core engine, game code, as well as the back-end services.
The nice jump is on sale.
Execute this. This is something that we've been working on ever since then. So for about a year now, we've been pushing really hard on server streaming. We've made meaningful progress on it, very meaningful. In fact, I just got out of a meeting about our progress with Chris Roberts, and I would say that the mood was pretty positive actually coming out of it. So some notable things that have happened so far include we've done a large set of changes to object containers as far as how they load entities. We've now separated things out into what are called dynamic entities and static entities, which gives us a certain amount of information that we need about what is streamable in the universe and what is not. So that's a big set of changes. Another thing that we did is we've made something called a star hash service, or StarEngine service rather. And StarEngine services are game services that are written in a way that's similar to game code, but can be deployed as a cloud service. Then we've taken this framework and we've built something using it called
because of
the
VAT,
Star Hash service. And
the
star
90 jump is significantly more than $890 for me.
The universe, similar to geohashes, if anyone's familiar with that concept. And it gives us a
72
way to
months insurance
partition
as
the
well.
universe so that we know how
Buy it in game.
essentially what sections of the universe are streaming at any given time in a really efficient way, as well as storing and looking them up efficiently. So we built a service that kind of keeps track of all of what we call entity aggregates in the universe, which are kind of the roots of trees, of entity trees. So that exists. And the Star Hash service now also, in addition, has been hooked up to what's called the Streaming Manager. Previously, the Streaming Manager was created and it governs the current client-side binding and unbinding, so the client-side streaming of object containers. But now we've done the work to hook it up to this new Star Hash service to drive streaming events to indicate to it that certain aggregates are streamed out or to collect certain.
I don't need to know exactly how it works.
So that work has
I'm
been
not
done.
programming it.
And now we have kind of
Chad, I love
still
you.
a bunch of work to go, but what we've
I'm
done
good,
is
thank
we've
you.
implemented something that is a prototype in-memory persistence cache. For server-side
What, Brian
streaming to work,
Chambers?
we basically have to implement
He's actually
global
died
persistence,
and
which
no
is
one
a
knows.
Huge set of changes for the game. It completely changes.
No,
the way
he's
that the
right.
game,
He's okay. It's
runs
false alarm.
and the way that we spawn and load entities. For testing purposes, we made this prototype in-memory persistence model, which allows us to write out to just like a local cache.
I linked it up
the
top. It's
state
just on the
of
RSI
any
website.
One of these like star hashes, sectors, whenever we stream them out. That is so that we can test game code, such as the mission system or the transit system or service beacons, whatever, to see what breaks whenever we start streaming things in and out on the
I
game
did want
server.
more details on object container streaming. That is
Obviously,
true.
We're
Careful what you
changing
ask
the
for.
way the game works quite significantly, so we have to revisit the existing game features that we have to make sure that they aren't broken and fix them in places that we are. So we have done that. The next
Okay, so
big
they've actually
things for us
got
to
past the
do
most
are
major
to
hurdle for
implement
server-side object container
the
streaming.
real backend for persistence, which requires effectively rewriting the way that the game writes out to persistence, and the backend, the cloud services that handle that data so that they're much better at handling much higher loads. You can imagine that the amount of data that we have in the game right now is large-ish, like we persist out
Nice and
players
cool here today.
ships,
Not awful day,
items,
nice day.
this kind of thing. And
Not
yeah,
hot,
you make
not
changes
cold.
to those all the time. Even your fuel, when you're flying around, we're pushing updates to the back end periodically for that. When you break something off a ship, right? All those changes are persisted, but now we're looking at the whole universe for all the game servers and the whole game, right? So there's a much higher volume, so we're having to do a really big set of changes on the back end side to be able to handle that load. That work is in progress, has been in progress, and it's
Not
going
all
to
ships are going to be
continue.
rentable.
After
Bear that in
that,
mind. I don't think the
last
890
kind of
jump's going to be
really big thing-
rentable.
There's a lot of little details in there. These are like the big ticket items. The last big thing is that game code.
Or if it is, it's going to be incredibly
happen.
expensive to
So
rent.
We need all the game feature teams to go and revisit their features and make sure that they're not broken, which is a big effort. And it's one of those things where until we really start testing heavily, we won't even know all
Why'd
the
you pay
work
VAT when you're
happens.
donating
There's
to
a
the
lot
development of a
unknown
game and
items
not buying
in
something?
there.
I know, right?
However,
Fucking ridiculous.
So that's good, I think. So, like I said, we came out of this meeting and I think we made a lot of good progress this year. However, one really positive thing that I think we've figured out is that our prototype in-memory persistence model
This is effectively
seems to be
full
working fairly
persistence.
well. So we're considering phasing out server streaming actually so that it doesn't need the full persistence backend the first time we ship it. So we can ship it in such a way that if a server goes down, its state is lost. Player state is not lost, notably. So the way the game works right now won't change from the player's perspective. It just means that we can add in some of the streaming benefits without yet having the full persistence benefits, which will come once we finish that work.
It will save player state
so
still,
that means that
but not
we
server
might
state.
see it
Okay?
on a more accelerated
First iteration.
release schedule than we maybe anticipated. I am not.
Portions of it,
Yeah,
portions.
I
a
didn't
part
think that
of
was a
it, yes.
possibility. That's
I'm
really
not
good to know.
giving dates. But it's.
But they can get server-side object container streaming and
Yeah, and so that's server streaming.
full persistence.
We can talk about
Part of
server
that in.
meshing, to answer the last part
earlier.
of the question. Server meshing is something, again, that's been a long time in the making. I mentioned at the very beginning netbind calling. That was itself a
The dinner was a
prerequisite
ticketed
for
event, so
server
they
meshing and serialized
sent an
variables.
email out saying you
Well,
could buy a ticket if you wanted to. That was a while ago.
We have, similar to server streaming, began significant planning and work on the feature. However, server streaming is a hard requirement for server meshing. So what that means is that even while we can make progress on it, because most of the work for server meshing falls on the network team with some support from the core engine and game code teams, whereas server streaming is mainly core engine, game code, backend services with support by the network
Some of this is
team.
actually very, very useful information.
We can do some amount in parallel,
Some of it's
but we
too high
can't
level.
deploy it in full until server streaming is done because it's a prerequisite.
Yeah.
It's how it even fundamentally works. So it will come after server streaming for sure.
I would expect
All right. Anybody got anything they want to add?
3.6.2
Thank you for answering that.
have gone
That was
live,
fun.
or at least OpenPTU.
All right, let's do a couple follow-ups that are tangentially linked to server-side OCS before we let you go. It's been said that it's been said before
3.6.2 is now
by
live.
Chris and by Sean, I believe, in the past, that the servers are kind of at capacity now, and we can't add any more larger locations until we add server-side
live.
OCS. We currently see Microtech on the 3.8 roadmap, but not server-side OCS. Why is that, and why is that? We'll start there.
I can, okay, I don't know what I can and can't say, but we don't want to, I'll talk mainly to server streaming. We don't want to commit to release dates quite yet for server streaming because, like I said, things are still in flux.
We don't know a date yet. Okay.
We can consider, I'm not saying that we will, but we can consider maybe content swaps if we wanted to add in a new area and take something out to account for it. That said, no decisions have been made on that. If we did end up getting server streaming out sooner than we anticipated, even then, I'm not sure what the result would be because we have to measure. Like anytime you implement an optimization, this is something I say to all my programmers on my team, you don't know if you've done the job until you've profiled. You don't know until you take a measurement. And so even whenever we get server streaming done, that's not a guarantee that anything is possible, that we can keep increasing the content. And we may find that actually the gains aren't as much as we'd like, or maybe we have to push in some other ways. So I guess what I would say is that those details will become more clear as the plan
very honest
gets filled
answer.
out and as we do more testing, and we can actually say with more confidence what the performance behavior is.
Also, Microtech and New Babbage are still being built. You know, so no matter what, the content team is still working on that, still finishing that aspect off. Until we get the LODs and we get the AI and all the other, you know, kind of downstream dependencies in there, then that will give us an accurate profile that Chad's talking about, you know, for us to say, okay, yeah, it does really mess up the server, you know, or, you know, we need to evaluate and taking something out, or everything's okay.
Right. And to give a little bit more detail into like why we can't know that quite, part of the benefit of server streaming is that it allows us to stream out areas where no players are. But there's this kind of unknown about how much that impacts like the actual universe, because if your most expensive assets and content areas are the popular landing zones, depending on player habits and where the players go in the game, we may find that actually those areas are constantly streamed in. They're pinned effectively to always be streamed in. And while, yes, we do stream out most of the universe, it doesn't impact performance that much because most of our performance issues are at these large landing areas. What we are more confident that server streaming will do is make it to where detail in the universe can be added much more confidently. So we could do things like add much more outposts or add more truck stops or whatever. These locations that even if all 50 players went to a different one, if we had 1,000 of them, well, it doesn't matter, only 50 of them will get loaded in. So it gives kind of an upward maximum on kind of the maximum distribution of what can be loaded in. But it's these kind of real spiky, from a performance point of view, areas in the game where
Don't go to any hard dates,
what
but
really happens. You know, maybe half of it gets
we now know that they can separate some parts of server-side container streaming in potentially for earlier. So we could much more likely to see that in 3.8 now.
Are basically the biggest performance
3.9.
You know, obviously Area 18, and there's a lot of entity count that's there. Just because of the city planet, the way it's built, it's very different versus like Hurston or.
So I was chatting to Eradicator a second ago on the stream.
So
in chat, you should go check out his channel. On the
I think we
YouTube.
know our problem areas. It really
makes
is just
a lot of Star Citizen videos, and he talks a lot about his opinions on it, which is great because he adds more to the conversation. I agree with him,
as well as the other
does
stuff
produce a lot of content,
Chad's
and
been
some of it's
talking
pretty
about.
good. So
then I think that will
check it out.
Really help our gains on us being able to just push the content in.
And as for just specifically to bring it back to why server-side OCS isn't specifically on the roadmap, we've said this a number of times before, the roadmap is not a list of things that are in development. The roadmap is a list of things of when we think we can deliver them, when we feel confident that we can deliver them. We all know that doesn't always work out that way, but with
Chad has a little bit of a murderous haircut, doesn't he?
I
can imagine him brushing his hair.
Zork,
the guy from...
We want to take a little more time, be a little more confident, be a little more
Fifth Element.
certain.
That's what it reminds me of.
When we can deliver that before we add it to the roadmap. And when we're at that point, you will see it added.
It's definitely coming.
Well, I think we've proved that we're working on it at least. Yeah, right. And then the last related question: how much is the
As
implementation
just linked
of
3.6.2
various
live
gameplay loops,
a minute ago.
hindered by the lack of
And the 890
server-side
jumps also on
improvements
sale.
such as server-side OCS, server meshing?
Too expensive, don't buy it.
Will we need to wait to get
Get it
those
in-game.
systems implemented before we can expect to see more expensive gameplay?
Yeah, so there's not really gameplay features that rely on server streaming. It goes more the other way, where server streaming relies on the gameplay features being written in a way that work with it. But it's not like something needs to be streamed out to work correctly. I mean, really what it gives you is just a way to scale better so that we can put more content and more features in, but not so much that there's some added behavior or feature that this adds in that now the feature can do something it could not before. There are some interesting things, like the tech that we write to create server streaming can enable, but it's not server streaming that does it. It's more that the foundational technologies that we make in order to create server streaming themselves could lend to some interesting feature development. And this is especially true, to give a perfect example, actually, with global persistence. Server streaming requires global persistence to work. We have to stream out an area and store it out.
Exactly.
But obviously, global persistence is something that we really want in the game. Global persistence doesn't require server streaming. In fact, we could have it without it, technically. Performance wouldn't be good. But it's something that we're making that you could think of as a feature that we made along the way in support of server streaming.
Yeah. It can't be understated how important it is. If we're going to pull things out and put things back, we have to be able to remember where they were at. Otherwise, the whole thing doesn't work.
Yep. I mean, the only thing, like Chad said earlier, the only thing that the game teams will be responsible
I think it'll be more
for
than
is
30
making
million
sure that their
in-game.
game code works with that. So obviously, if they're doing
Being
that,
closer
then
to
they're not
closer to
feature
twice that, in my
development.
opinion.
They are, but they're not. So it's a necessary evil. That we know that the feature teams have to go through in order to get us to this. The final journey.
We had the
Resistance
same
was
concept,
wiped, yes.
too, just with the initial
There was a database
implementation
wipe with
of,
this patch.
the object containers.
Yes.
The unknowns were unknown at that point, So it was a bit of a roll of the dice, but we got it sorted.
Yeah. Since we're talking about persistence, this next question would like some clarification on persistence and the notion of ending wipes.
Good questions.
They basically want to
Some
know
good
if persistence
questions.
will be
Overly explained by
the
Chad.
end of wipes.
No.
Yeah,
How much have I spent,
I'm
Wolf?
gonna
Is that what you're
say something
asking?
about this.
What about
I agree with
$3,000?
Todd, no.
Typically, I can justify that
So there are
because it's
some
sort of like the
really
main focus of
fundamental reasons
my work
why
and my
we need
job.
to keep wiping the
And
persistence
I can
database
claim
right now,
some of that back
largely because
through taxes, I
the
suppose,
game
as well,
is
as it's a business,
so much in
so.
flux right now. Every release, every patch, even, we're changing the format of the data pretty dramatically at times. So, trying to kind of ferry this data when it's in such tremendous flux is, I think, a fool's errand. Really, our goal is to get to a place where our game features are a little bit more stable, a little bit less tumultuous before we flip the switch. On top of that, we also need a strategy about what we do when we end up changing the formats of data, which is absolutely going to
I
happen.
want to
It's
see
not
most
like we'll
people
stop.
spending
We
just
need to
buying
get to a point where we're doing it
a
less often.
starter pack and being able to have a great time in Star Citizen.
And,
That's
I can say that
that's
actually
important.
This is not something that has been kind of like forgotten about, and it's not something that we don't think about. We had a few meetings very recently, actually, to talk about this very specific thing, because it's something that
How
we
much
care
do
about.
I cost?
And I think we have a really good
what,
plan
in-game
about what
or?
to do about long-term stopping the wipes, about how we can go about migrating data, and how we can give important
Apparently one
game,
teacup. That's all
features
CIG
the
needed to
gameplay
spend for me
programmers
to
and
be a shill.
methodology to do that
Gave me a
ferrying of the
teacup and
data
saucer.
whenever they change their own formats. However, to give a little bit of hope, we are also exploring,
the last
within
episode of
this
Pillar
process,
Talk was a
Thomas
trash
alluded to,
episode.
We're also exploring
Pillar Talk,
potentially
not great
ways
last
to
time.
persist things
2 weeks ago,
more permanently
Inside Star Citizen trash.
sooner. And this would be important things.
I can see why
for
people get
example,
annoyed at
maybe your
Disco,
ship
and for that,
purchases in the game, or your UEC. So
I'm hoping we
things
get
that you think
significantly
of as,
better
like,
content because of that.
important to your progression in the game.
In the future,
We're
anyway.
exploring possibly storing a much more coarse level
I see more.
data about them across wipes, so that we can kind of restore you back to the, maybe your ship wasn't in the exact same place, but you still have it, right?
So we're going to get
maybe
partial
your gun isn't where you dropped it last,
progression.
but you still have it. Your UEC that you worked for 2 months on, 3 months on is still there, and I think that would be a pretty tremendous,
higher priority features. I mean,
yes,
persisting of everything is important.
Yeah.
But the higher priority things that negatively affect gameplay,
yes.
it sucks when the
So
servers
they are
crash,
able
when
to
you come
break
back and your
down
ships are gone. Right. It's like that. Being
some
able to
features of
bring
server-side object
elements
streaming,
of that online, and
some
iterative
persistence.
nature.
Yeah. And I'm specifically talking about across wipes, so that when the next patch comes out, everybody knows every patch we're going to wipe, and so there's almost a nihilism, right, to what you're doing in the game, because at a certain point
The 890 jump is in the
it's
patch
all going
today.
away, right?
A couple of little tiny
we wanna get
fixes,
away from that.
tweaking
So I
of
think
weapons
it
so they
starts
don't go
with
through shields
basics
all the time.
and seeing what we can do about that, and then long term having a strategy for stopping it entirely.
Because, I mean, obviously with our ship prices in game and everything like that, those are very, very long-term goals, So us, I don't want to wipe every quarter, but I want us to be able to wipe when we need to wipe. And so,
what's the law of being able to stick bits of ore and space freight into skin tight spacesuit?
I do want the players to be able to.
I think
work
we're supposed to
towards
have
these longer-term
backpacks.
goals,
they go
versus
into
trying to hit it
pockets.
in 3
You are
months,
able to spawn boxes
so
from your
then
character
at
as well
that
in the new
point in time,
system.
We are really testing
to put all that stuff in
better
is
to
odd.
understand.
So we'll have to
do we have these things
wait to see what it actually looks like in game.
The time frame that we think they should be in. It should be a 3-month earn or a 6-month grind or longer. And it really depends on the telemetry that we're getting back off of these things, and right now we just don't know. We have a best estimate and we have a best guess of hey, we think it does this, but until we're actually seeing it constantly, then we'll adjust from there.
All right. Thank you, Chad. You're welcome to hang out if you want.
I'll hang out. Yeah.
All right, cool.
I'm having fun.
So, so Todd,
Go out to work, Chad.
Back to where we left off before Chad.
Chilling
joined
out.
us.
Oh my god.
We used to, we
Wasted
in the
development,
past-
I'm
in the-
all
I'm
right.
going to restate the question a little bit. In the past, as the project was just starting, as there was less game to play, less game to build on a quarterly basis, we released a series of design documents. As development progressed, as we were able to move more into content phase and start cranking things out faster, we pulled back from releasing those design documents.
Give them.
A very common
I want
question
design
is,
documents.
will we go back to releasing those design documents publicly? And if we're not, why?
I don't think so. Like I said, we have changed the way that we develop things, and we're also in a different stage in development, for this project. So a lot of times when we're, let's say, talking about law, or we're talking about
thanks for watching.
features that we're working on right now, mining, salvaging, so on and so forth. Like we have an
Pretty chill
internal
what we're doing
document of
now
what
anyway,
we want
so.
to hit. And it I would call it almost like a one-pager, and that has the very high-level beats of what we think we can hit for tier 0 and what we need to hit for tier 0. And the previous documents used to go through like tier 1 through 0 through 4, and so there was a lot of things that would happen when we start getting to tier 0, and then we release it, and then it would change, and then that would make 1 through 4 completely moot, and then it would just kind of get into this weird cycle. So I'm more than
from what
happy to
I'm able to
talk
understand,
about, what we're working
they
on,
don't
and how we're
have
moving towards, and
an understanding beyond
having
the
that
very
back and forth
basic
with the community
implementation
and
of
saying,
how
hey, here are the
mechanic is
ideas,
going
here
to
are the
evolve
designs that we're going towards
anymore.
But I don't think doing these long design documents that Tony or myself or other designers that I
Agile
work with,
feature development,
doing these things, I don't think it's worth us putting those out anymore.
Yeah, I can add a little bit of programmer perspective on that, which maybe people will be interested in. I started working at a time years ago when we did, the more monolithic designs, and it's an interesting change that we've gone through since then. And I think one of the big things about when you're as a programmer thrown onto a feature that has, you look at the design document and it's like a 4-volume encyclopedia, you have a lot of questions, right? And it was, we were more siloed back then. So, design would happen, but then as a programmer, you'd be thrown onto
chips have different uses.
And there'd be kind of a sync up. There might be technical considerations that hadn't been fully realized until we started implementing it, but then also design questions as we implement it and put it out there. And I think as we've moved now into this phase where it's more feature teams, and programming is working much more closely with design, and we're more willing to be a little bit more agile.
Winging it, the greatest, most effective dev strategy of all time. I don't think they're entirely winging it, but I do think they are very agile with the development of their features, which is sort of fine.
As far as what is possible,
but they need to have an expectation of how those mechanics are supposed to work later on to build the tier zeros. You see what I mean? They can't just go, oh, tier 0 of this is going to be this. Well, why is it going to be that rather than anything else? You must have thought about the next tier.
Which might color the way that you do the implementation. So I think it's a pretty good set of changes that we've made.
Yeah. The design documents worked against an agile.
It's all about agile development. I understand that.
One of the biggest benefits of Star Citizen is that we do have a live game environment.
Maybe it'll be sensible for Star Citizen because if they get the tier 0s out quicker because of that,
yesterday,
people can have lots of feedback on that and then evolve
the changes to proximity,
the mechanics accordingly. And when Star Citizen's in a closer state to being finished, then they can just balance them so they're all viable.
Being able to
that seem reasonable?
Deliver these tier 0 things. Get your feedback, adjust what tier 1 is going to be, put that out, get your feedback, adjust what tier 2 is going to be, is incredibly valuable.
I'm actually on board for that, but I would expect them to have a deep dive of how they expect a mechanic to work still.
That would deny us the feedback of the community, or
thank you very much, Robert Johnston. I love your face. I will try and keep the noise down. Beautiful, beautiful man.
That pretty much cover it, Todd?
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right, let's see.
Now, Drac, if I haven't already said this, thank you very much for the sub. Appreciate it.
Roadmap question. What happened to Fuel, a gameplay feature that was just removed from the roadmap? Is it coming back?
Yeah.
Yeah, Fuel's coming back.
Fuel doesn't exist in the game.
All right.
I mean, so we just had a meeting with Chris about refueling and kind of the two different aspects that's basically John's pillar. So
I'd love Chris to fight a bomb.
One of the vehicle feature teams will be focusing on, and same with vehicle content, and then what's basically my pillar. Basically the resource gathering would be focusing on. So there's the refueling, the fuel scoops, those types of things, and then my pillar would be focusing on like quantum fuel mining or harvesting, and then that gameplay loop of going through and refining it, and then being able to sell it or being able to transfer it to somebody. So it will come back on. I think you'll see glimpses, once we get through some of the core things that we want those teams to go, that they're currently working on, because frankly for S42 it's not needed, so again we have those teams focusing on things that are needed for S42. If the PU team can work on it, then we have those work, we have them work on it.
Okay, cool.
And there's a good chance to plug that going forward with future major additions to or changes to the roadmap. Maybe not with some
see
of the
Fuel back on the roadmap at some point.
We're going to start adding comlink posts and more information about why.
But even there,
each
talked
successive
about
change on the roadmap occurs when they
finding the fuel, getting the fuel,
to that,
gathering the fuel, refining the fuel.
So from our amazing community team. Hi, Tyler. All right, let's see. Another roadmap question. Why do we not update some features on the roadmap for weeks? Maybe this is something Brian can speak to.
It's due to the complexity, honestly, and our desire to have everything as accurate as possible. It kind of bites us a little. Publishing the roadmap, obviously, it's our ability to be transparent on what we're doing, show our progress, what we plan to do in the future, and so on. our end goal is to give everyone, the
We
most
don't know when we're
updated
getting permanent
information,
purchases.
But we want it
We
also
obviously
to be
want
accurate.
them.
So
They are talking about
when
phasing
something on
in
the roadmap
some
comes in early or late,
levels of
it's obviously got a knock-on effect with
assistance
something
and
else.
server-side container streaming stuff
So we take
in
the
the
time,
not too
we
distant future, or at least
verify
sooner.
what
They can
impact the
detach it and
changes had.
decouple it from other parts.
That then takes time. Then once everything's verified, then we go through and we
Once they have no more
we
resets,
give an
then you'll
update.
have potentially
What
permanent
we've realized,
purchases.
and
from that.
I've had this question come
and
personally
that could be as
even
early
from
as next
some
year.
members on the team, that it seems like too much of a gap.
Could be as early as 3.8
So we've
even.
already discussed this internally.
That's
and
very
moving
optimistic.
forward, we're going to change the frequency of the updates. So I think moving forward, everyone's going to see smaller updates happen more frequently. Some of the back-end stuff may not be as 100% accurate because we haven't gone through the entire process yet, but it'll give a clear glimpse of when we know something moves, we should update the map to reflect that so people know what the expectations are. And the flip side, if something may, a team may finish and we can pull something in sooner, we should also update that as well.
One more question for you, Brian. I know you've got a train to catch here. We're actually past the time when we were supposed to stop, but we're going to push a little bit longer because of our technical issues earlier. What's the current status of our Vulcan implementation?
Vulcan's going good, quote unquote good. We actually had a summit a little while ago about Vulcan, where engine team and everyone got together on the rendering side and said, okay, what is it that we need to do and where are we at and who's going to take on what?
I don't know, DC. I haven't actually tried to use the interaction mode. I just pressed Y to get out of the seat.
Stage 1, we clean up the use of the global state in the rendering code. That's already been moving forward for it's been underway for the last, few months, I would say, roughly 3-4 months. Stage 2 is a refactor of the render passes, take advantage of new APIs, current and future GPUs, and so on, so we can help milk those more. That started a couple weeks ago after the summit, and that progress is going good. The third and final is basically the implementation of the actual Vulcan backend. And although on paper it's not officially kicked off yet for that portion, parts of the team are already actually starting to work on that, and there's some parts of the Vulcan backend that's already been in there. So, so progress ultimately is going good. With those first two and it's not an all or nothing. I think as we get some of these changes, we could have some stuff come in before the entire Vulcan backend's there. I've been told DX11 will already benefit from the first two stages, and we should see some performance improvements there. And ultimately, at the end, the plans are not to support, quote unquote Vulcan, just by a straight port of the render, but actually refactor all of the render code, so you can take advantage of everything that Vulcan has to offer.
So Vulcan's obviously incredibly important to the game.
So,
we are running right down to your wire, Brian. I want to see if we can squeeze one more in before you have to get it, but then you can feel free to leave right after this.
No, I got a certain time. I'll leave when I need, but I'm here.
It'll be mid-question, by the way.
I'm sorry?
It'll be mid-question. We'll just get up and walk.
Yeah, absolutely. when I'm done, I'm done. That's it.
All right. Once Squadron 42 Once Squadron 42 is shipped, will the PU see the majority of developers who are working on Squadron 42 move over?
Some of them will, I believe.
Focus?
Yes and no. A portion of the team will probably roll over to the PU fairly quickly. I'm hoping there's, a handful of them that actually take a few days off.
Vulcan with a K, or
they'll be
Vulcan
working really hard.
With
but others will actually go directly onto pre-production and some probably forms of production for Chapter 2. And also important to note that some people or some disciplines actually won't be needed all the way to the end for Squadron, right? They're working now, but they'll roll off. So even before Squadron actually officially gets released, they'll be able to roll over to PU. So as we get further along,
this is why Brian's here. He doesn't this
we'll
sort of stuff.
Constantly evaluate where we are.
Non-game design questions.
Resources, see the status of everything, and most likely update the roadmap accordingly with if that increases our progress on what we can provide for the PU, while the rest of the team readies themselves to jump onto Chapter 2.
All right. And for those
He
of
means
you in
episode
chat
2
who
rather than
seem
chapter
surprised
2,
that,
but
yes, Squadron 42 has been from its inception perceived as a trilogy. So next question, ship combat. This sounds like a Todd question. Ship combat has several problems.
It's a Chad question.
Yeah, let's have Chad talk about ship
I
combat.
can
Here,
talk
slowly.
about ship combat.
Ship combat has several issues, as stated in the top voted 361 feedback thread. Is there a team working on ship combat, and can we expect significant tuning in 3.7 or 3.8 or just soon?
Oh,
Yes. So
good answer.
Basically, what we did.
GIF.
What we
GIF
did
good combat
previously
clicks.
is we'd be working, and in
Trixie
particular,
little
designers
boxes.
were not
Thank you
allocated,
so
programmers
much
were
for all
not
the
allocated
great
just
content.
to
Only way
balancing.
I can keep
Dr.
up
Lawson, thank you very much for the sub.
We
Very
have
much
created a
appreciated.
balanced
Love
team
your face.
that for all quarter, they will be focused on balance issues, focused on fixing, things that just are
If we can
not
get
working the way that we
playable,
want them to
fun
work.
combat,
So that
PvE
team
and
just got
PvP,
created.
I will be happy.
And in fact, the main designer on it was focusing on the Vanguard before and building that. So, and then from there, he's moving over to really the tuning and polishing of these things.
Okay.
So, from his standpoint, you can see where he'd be working on things, and then he would only have a certain amount of time of tuning, and that's really how that team was working, where they would be building something, then they would be able to fit tuning in for about 3-4 weeks and do as many changes as they possibly could, and then go back to building something. So they didn't get into the cadence and as well as get into the balance changes that we want to do for long term. So you'll see stuff in 3.7. I think you'll see a lot more in 3.8, 3.9 kind of thing. So with that team, they're doing just general tuning passes. They're working on basically the pip and targeting problems, which would include the gimbal assist as well as the fixed gun problem, turret behaviors, making missiles its own mode kind of thing. The way to encourage kind of closer combat and to penalize, combat at higher speeds, kind of
Feel free to
accuracy
chat
or
about what
shield
you want,
degradation,
Blackbird,
those
typically.
types of things,
Um,
and more. So we're just going to be.
It's all good.
We're
Like
going to be
the
able to tune and
conversation going
test
on
and iterate on these things at a much faster rate than we had before. So now that we have these teams just focusing on that, then that's we view this as a core change, and then so getting the ships to feel right, getting the combat to feel right, having a little bit more of an intimacy, to the combat versus it being just pixel hunter. So that's our goal and our focus to really tighten that up, because that is needed for S42, and obviously it's needed for PU, but it at least the first iteration of S42 has to have that right.
They've identified that correctly.
All right. Will there be remote logging outside of spaceships with the advent of large underground cave systems, as well as continued development of our
I think there is
planetary
remote logging,
environments?
isn't there? They don't want
What
that.
is our intent to allow players to log out without having to constantly go back to their ship?
Actually, no. Sorry.
Well, I mean, CR's talked about it, and we talked about it internally, kind of how we can do it, or what we would do, whether it be let's say a tent or a sleeping bag or whatever. But it has been discussed, and I do think CR wants to be able to have these other ways of logging out that wouldn't be allocated just to the ship or a landing zone or a space station.
Yeah, and something I would add to that is that we have already been working on things that will, if we want to go down that route, support it. Two things are, one, global persistence, but then another one is actually the persistent HABs, is work actually that moves in that direction. So
No 890 jump liner currently for the
definitely,
Polaris and
it's
Idris owners.
something that
Okay.
on the tech side we've been
Might evolve.
We're almost there. There's just two more. Can we have the ability to lock onto ground turrets? Guns
Yes,
do not converge properly
please.
if no target is selected. This didn't
Quick
come from
answer
me, I
is
promise.
yes. Quick answer is yes. Basically, we have it on the U.S. vehicle feature team. I don't think it'll be for 3.7, but I would like to get it
I can
done
win.
sooner than later.
And finally, before we let you go, we just added a 4.0 to the end of our roadmap with the.
Now, we knew there wasn't going to be a
with the
CCU for the
changes that we
897,
made
but I did
last
anyway.
week. Some folks think the logical patch number increase from 3.9 would be 310 as the 10th major patch for software version 3. With 4.0 on the roadmap, should we expect a similarly larger leap in
No, they're
gameplay
just numbers.
experience, like the one we saw with 2.0 or with 3.0?
I would like to think so. I mean, I think obviously if we get server-side OCS, most of Stanton would be there, if not all.
Okay,
so
maybe I'm
having
wrong.
a full system there, like that's music.
But maybe I'm right.
Um,
And he's just trying to make it sound better.
a huge that to me is like a vertical slice. This is a galaxy or a solar system for us, and so obviously we got more to create, but then that would be, hey, here's our stake in the ground. Here we have all the celestial bodies, in this. I think that would be huge and would warrant a number change.
Absolutely.
And for folks who look at the current, listing on 4.0 and don't see a whole lot there, I'm just going to say, keep your eyes and ears peeled.
Updating all that stuff.
We've got a bit of time between now and then, and just wait for it.
Stuff will be added.
Yeah. That's it. Guys, we did it. Thank you so much for taking your time at the end of your Friday to hang here with us and be on the show this week. It's always great when we can have Todd and Brian on. We haven't been together in a long time, so
It's been a long
nice,
time.
nice.
Yeah.
And Chad, you're always a delight. You're
always
always
fun.
you always just come.
I agree, Chad.
You come on and you're just like this bright ray of technical light.
His energy even broke the stream, I think.
Yeah. You want to just hang out and just co-host the show with me from now on?
I'm fine. Yeah, let's do it.
Don't do. They're not going to let you.
They're not gonna let me, but I can sneak it in. I'll script it.
So in case you haven't been paying attention to the website or whatever, 362 went live during the course of the broadcast. So that's live now. You can start your downloads. That's got the 890 jump ready for you. Todd, Brian, Chad, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's a quite good map for the ship.
Our pleasure. See ya.
Choose.
Area 18. 2949. Things were changing. You could feel it.
I assume this is the 890 jump clip, which we will look at now. Bam. A bit more.
Area 18. 2949. Things were changing. You could feel it. And it was Gatsby, the center of it all.
How'd you get on Gatsby's list?
The name on everybody's lips. You never knew where Gatsby might head off to next, but that was half the fun. No one dared sleep for fear of missing something incredible.
I want opera singers on my 890 jump. Give us flair, please.
In Gatsby's
In my head
world,
there.
nothing was off limits. Unless you were trying to crash the party. No matter where Gatsby may be off to next, whatever mysterious port of call she's heading to,
I like the little Gatsby name on the sides.
the next time I see her won't be soon enough.
they can certainly make very cool trailers now, and obviously the tech's going a lot better, and they're starting implementing a lot more of it in the game, and yeah, the core of the game's getting there. That's a cool advert for the 890 jump. However, let's go down and have a look, shall we? See my options for purchase. So I've got to pay VAT, so 20% on the prices, so that's $890 and $950. It is flyable now in 3.6.2, which just went live. It's definitely one to buy in game, unless you've got, you know, more money than sense. It's like $1,000 is nothing to me. Comes with 72 months insurance for either one, I believe. Let me just double check and make sure that's accurate for both. 72 months insurance, yes, for both of those. You can also buy an 890, 85X. Apparently it's $50 normally, is it? Fuck. But yeah. Interesting. What are you green? What, like, a friend of the Greens? What do you want? What do you want from me? Any other questions before I go and eat? I'll do a very brief sort of like, is the 4.0 surprise giant sandworms? I'm not sure if there is a known surprise yet for 4.0. I wouldn't expect them to be working or planning what's going to be in 4.0 until the team's finished 3.8 with the staggered development cycle, so it is very Fifth Element indeed. And Rockstar Citizen, yeah, thanks. You can sing for me, appreciate it. Actually, we can fucking foip and foip. I can actually opera sing. Ah, la 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 la. I'll just do that for hours and hours and hours, and you'll like it. Oh, I do need to do an 890 jump party. We'll do it for this weekend, I suppose. I'll assume I've got the time, which I will have. I will chuck up some details of how I want people to apply for that. Basically, I'll go on the Discord. I'll go into one of the rooms and say, give me your handles so I can add you as a friend. This is the handle I'll be using. What handle will I be using? This handle. So if you want to add me as a friend for an 890 jump party, probably this weekend, and it's going to be Ubermonkey, one word. That's my handle for the game that will have the 890 jump as a ship on its account. So feel free to add that, and I'll grab your names from the Discord. That's probably the better way of doing it. I'll put some more details up at that, and when I work out what the hell's going on. We'll do multiple ones, though. It won't just be one. I'll do multiple ones. I've got these ships, not just for a single video or a single mess around. And it doesn't have to necessarily be on stream or video or anything. It might just be us messing around. Probably me recording something, because I like B-roll footage. But yeah, so what I liked most from that Star Citizen Live was probably them talking about the ability to decouple server-side object container streaming features and full persistence features into potentially getting some features partly implemented early, which is interesting, because that means we could have full persistence from each patch. Well, not full persistence, but they won't need to reset patches, and it would save the state of your what ships you had purchased, your Alpha UEC, and your reputation and stuff like that. So a good amount of persistence. Wouldn't save exactly where you were on the server or all your data, but it would save a good amount. Rust is adding new instruments. Me and Zin are going to start to be playing Rust when she's working for me. Rust is one of my favourite games in the world. We obviously want more gameplay mechanics. That's the main stuff they need to be focusing on. They do get ships in every patch, though, and regularly. So bear that in mind. And probably don't be bitter about it. It is part of their funding model, and we know that from the start. There's only like a small portion of the actual team that works directly on ships, so just bear that in mind. But yeah, I'm happy that if they're trying to get some server-side logic container streaming type stuff or part of full persistence in 3.8 potentially, 3.9, 4.0, getting all of that stuff done. Right, I'm going to go for dinner or lunch, whatever the fuck time it is. And Overhawk, feel free to poke me in my Discord if you're about your Rust server. We always look for Rust servers. We always find that the admins either have stupid settings or are corrupt as fuck. And I like to be able to raid people. I like a bit of socialization, and I like to be able to play with people that want to play. We tried to do it, a board gamer, sort of like we jump on a server, but we found that there was a bit of corruption on the servers we went on. But yeah. Right. Fucking love you guys. I'm going to go and host someone else. I'll get a video up on what they were talking about in Star Citizen Live. Probably up as part of my news on the weekend. Might be its own separate video. I'll have to rewatch it again and see if there's any major things beyond what I understood from it. But yeah, overall a good episode. Some technical difficulties during it. I do appreciate people watching and joining me for what is some sort of weird sort of party watch. Thank you for all the fucking money and the subs. No, I'm talking about yourself. No. Episode. Thank you so much for all the donations. Robert Johnston is my favourite person. I know he's not here, but Dr. Lawson, Galoth, Gulith, Madrick, Netstorm, the Ferrero Gaming. Who else do we have here? Got Cop, motherfucker. Moshes of W Wolves, Revoxer, Jaden Cattrall, Binary Hawk, Ninja Diddy, Fullub, Desperado, Haneth, Calamars, Craig Robin, JP Sandman. You're all fucking super appreciated. Thank you so much for the subs, for the resubs, for the donations, for the bits, for all that sort of stuff. Very much appreciated. I fucking love you. My channel is community supported massively, so the monies and all of that sort of jazz, it makes the channel work. It allows me to employ Zin, who's going to be joining me hopefully very soon. And hopefully the channel will get better and better and better, and I could produce better YouTube content or be richer. You'll see better backgrounds behind you because I'll have more money to throw around. Whee! Chucking money around me like no one's fucking business. But I love you guys. Might be doing some Borderlands 3, potentially some streams on that. I might be doing some Gears of War streams. I've got a load of footage of a couple of playthroughs from Man of Medan, both from mine and DC doing a co-op playthrough together, and Zin and Kit, who are the lady girls that I know, are doing a playthrough together. Very different playthroughs. I'm thinking about splicing them all together with our sort of like comments over them. So that might be good. But we'll have to wait and see. Obviously, the core of my channel is always going to be Star Citizen. Stream, however, might be some other stuff. And I'm looking at doing some other channel-y bits and bobs in the future too, in addition to all the Star Citizen content and expanding content out. But thank you very much for all the support, all the love, all the money. Is very much appreciated. And we will go and host. We'll give it Bad News Baron. Because I haven't seen him for a while. Give that man some love. /raid Bad News Baron. Hopefully that should work. Perfect. Thanks for watching, guys. You take care. I'll see you soon, and peace out. I think I've got a video that's just come out as well. Video just come out. Check that out. It'll be good. Peace.